Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got betdavid? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to hate it. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Okay, today, episode 351, we have with us Dr. John Abramson. He's an American physician and the author of books Overdosed America, The Broken Promise of American Medicine, and Sickening, How Big Pharma Broke American Healthcare and How We Can Repair It. He has worked as a family doctor in Appalachia and in Hamilton, Massachusetts, and has served as chairman of the Department of Family Practice at Leahy Clinic. He was a Robert Wood Johnson Fellow and is on the clinic faculty of Harvard Medical School, where he teaches primary care and public health policy. He graduated from Harvard College. 1974, he received a BMS from Dartmouth Medical School, followed his MD with Brown Medical School. He has appeared on more than 65 national television shows, including 2 appearances on Today's Show, as well as Dr. Oz. But today, what's more important is he's been on Joe Rogan, and he's been on Lex Fridman, and he's written op-ed pieces for New York Times, LA Times, and others. And I'll read the last part here on what he did, what his book, the kind of influence his book had. So in September 2004, when he published Overdosed America, The Broken Promise of American Medicine, just 1 week later, Vioxx was withdrawn in the biggest drug recall ever, but not before it had already killed between 40 to 60,000 Americans, despite providing no better relief than inexpensive over-the-counter anti-inflammatory drugs. So having said that, Doc, it's great to have you on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we got a lot of things I want to cover with you. I got some things with Big Pharma I have an issue with. I've watched your podcast with Lex. I thought you guys did a great job. I thought he did a great job trying to be fair. And it was a perfect timing because it was February of 2022, 3 months after he had interviewed the CEO of Pfizer, I believe, 2 or 3 months. And I wonder how much your position changed, because when I was listening to that one versus today, and, you know, the great thing about medicine is it's constantly evolving. And my experience with medicine has been, my dad's 81 years old, and he's still alive because of folks from your industry. If it wasn't for folks in your industry, he wouldn't be alive today. One of the best examples of the pharmaceutical industry, not only the pharmaceutical industry, the health, the doctor industry, Ken Langone, which I'm sure you're familiar with, billionaire Home Depot. There's a NYU, I believe, even has a hospital named after him. Right. And he's in his mid-80s, early 80s, I want to say. He looks like he's 70, but he's, oh, shoot, I'm off, 88 years old. And in his book, I Love Capitalism, he tells a story on how his dad, I believe, died at 60 or 62 years old. Can you search to see what age Ken Langone's father died? He died at 60 or maybe even 58 years old. And he says, all my dad needed was blood thinners. If my dad had blood thinners, he would be alive today. He says, I'm 80-some years old because I've been taking blood thinners for so many years. Yep. That was a simple little invention that, you know, patent that they came up with, and that helped my dad would have been around today, or he would have lived longer. So there's a lot of positive things in it, but there's also a lot of people filled with egos who hate to be wrong because, let's face it, in our space, like I was a financial advisor working on Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, and I went to Transamerica World Financial. I would sit with people who are doctors. If I tell you which professional knew the least about money, it was doctors. Doctors knew nothing about money. And every time I asked them, I said, this is all you got? I do. Man, how is it that smart people like you don't have your finances in order? He says, just because we're doctors, everybody thinks we know everything, and we don't. We don't know everything about money. So how much has your position changed from February of 2022 when you were with Lex? At that time, we were still all learning about the side effects of vaccine. You guys on that podcast talked about vaccine. You were talking about had you had taken a vaccine, you're somebody that pro-vaccine, you had gone through it, and then conversation came about censorship because of what Joe was going through at the time with Spotify and all that stuff. And then you said, I think I'm less inclined to anti-vaxxers being allowed to speak freely on social media platforms than those who are qualified to talk about it. How much of what you talked about then has changed 2 years later, being today?
Good question. So I think there's 2 questions there. One is about vaccines. The other is about the risk of having people conclude that what I'm saying is don't take medicine. Medicines don't work. They're not worth the money. Shut it down. That's absolutely not my position. And if I can tell you a little story, I had a life-threatening illness. I had a recurrent ventricular tachycardia that got progressively worse over about 8 years. And I got to the end of the line. I was stuck in the hospital on IV lidocaine. If the dose was turned down, I would go into ventricular tachycardia. I had 3 failed ablations, and it was the end of the line.
How old were you?
It was last year,
Okay.
15 months ago.
Got it.
I got transferred into one of the teaching hospitals at Boston where they do a very complicated procedure. They go in the groin and do a regular, as if it were a regular ablation. And at the same time, another doc goes through the chest wall and threads a little catheter into the lining of your heart so that 2 electronic monitors can work at the same time, and they can find the source of the arrhythmia in 3 dimensions. When you just go in the groin, you can just get it in 2 dimensions on the surface. You don't know how deep it is. And my problem happened to be right on the outside of the heart. They would have had to perforate my heart to get it from the inside, but they got it from the outside. 6-hour procedure by 2 world-class docs, and they saved my life. The next day, a cardiologist comes into my room and starts telling me I should be taking more cholesterol-lowering medicine. And I said, wait a minute, that's not the issue. And the study—
He knows you're a doctor.
He knows I'm a doctor.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know whether he knows that I write about this and that I've written articles about it, but he knows I'm a doctor. And I say to him, look, the study that you're citing is not a good study. It has bad endpoints. And he said, well, if you restricted the endpoints to good endpoints, it would cost the company too much to do the study. And I said, well, that's not my problem. That's the company's problem. If they can't do the study, then they shouldn't be selling the drug. And then I said, besides which, do you know, I'm looking him in the eye, and I can also see the monitor. I don't know that I'm cured yet, and I'm watching the heart monitor as the tension rises. And I say to him, do you know that when peer reviewers review articles for the best journals, JAMA, the New England Journal, do you know that those peer reviewers don't get to see the real data from the studies? They just get to see the data that has been put into the 10-page manuscript that was submitted to the journal. And the peer reviewers don't know what happened in the study. Do you know that? And he said, yes, I do. And I said to him, if you know that the evidence that doctors have to rely on, the evidence in evidence-based medicine, has not been vetted with a thorough independent analysis of the data, how can you possibly present yourself as a learned intermediary and recommend these treatments to other doctors and to your patients? And that was the end of the conversation.
What did he say to you?
I can't remember, but he—
Now, is this a cardiologist? I mean, you wouldn't just go to any cardiologist. Is this a well-known cardiologist you went to, or it's just a cardiologist?
No. I'm in one of the world-class teaching hospitals at Harvard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's a trusted guy that's going through this. So for you, why don't you, as a person that's going to Harvard, hospital, why don't you trust him? Why don't you take his recommendation?
Because he knows that he doesn't have access to the data that he is drawing his conclusions from, and yet he's willing to make recommendations with inadequate data.
Why is he giving it to you, knowing you're a doctor?
He knows he doesn't have the data. He knows nobody has the data. You have to be in litigation to get the data. He knows that, and yet he's willing to participate in this system where peer review is meaningless, yet doctors have to practice in accord with so-called evidence-based medicine.
So who is he? Whose orders is he following? Is this the FDA? Is it the hospital's guidelines? Whose guidelines is he following?
Yeah, good question. So what he's following is really, there was this wonderful book written by a nuclear physicist turned philosopher of science, Thomas Kuhn, in 1962, wrote a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And what he showed is that when there are experts who rely on a certain body of knowledge, you're not allowed to become an expert unless you adhere to the unwritten rules of the legitimacy of the science. And this is coming to play in American medicine. The docs, even the academic leaders, like the cardiologist I was talking to, believe that somehow there's this magical transformation of non-vetted data into real evidence that he should trust and recommend for his patients and for the doctors he's teaching. It's what appears to be the truth of the science is sociologically determined. It's not scientifically determined.
Can I ask you a question? As I was reading that part, I read a summary of your book and what you were saying here, and I was trying to convert it into an understanding for the common man. I'd like to know if you think my understanding is correct. Yeah. So Pat writes a book, a deep research book. I am the first person, so I see the whole book, all of his research, all of his appendices, and I write a book review. You write what's called a peer review. Most people think, well, another learned doctor must have gone through everything and is writing a peer review. But in fact, you wrote your peer review only on my book report. You never read Pat's book. Is that a good understanding of what you're describing for the common person?
It is, but it's worse. Let's translate Pat's book and the review into clinical practice guidelines, which doctors have to follow. They get presented in court if things go awry. The people who write those clinical practice guidelines are relying on the studies that have been published in the journals. Those studies have been peer-reviewed, but the data hasn't been analyzed. When the guidelines are written, the experts who write those guidelines just have access to the articles that are published. They don't have access to the real data. So to go back to your analogy, you'd be writing, if I relied on a review, that wouldn't be good. But if I relied on Patrick's references, which is what the experts do who write the guidelines that tell doctors how to practice, that doesn't work either because that's not independently analyzed data.
God, this is crazy. So now I write the book review, 5 other doctors do a peer review of my book review, and then a 6th doctor has access to that and only that and starts writing the how-to procedure for emergency rooms and doctors to perform.
You've got it.
So let me go back to the question.
And none of those people go back to Pat's original book.
But Pat's original book isn't going to be good enough. They don't, but that's not good enough because what Pat has relied on, being a meticulous researcher, is the articles that have been published in the academic literature. In medicine, those articles, the peer review is a sham. So it's all built on sand.
So he may have written his book.
Wait a minute.
Researching
you said
weird information.
all the papers are all built on sham.
All the papers are peer reviewed. The peer reviewers don't have access to the data. The drug companies own the data.
Okay, so then let me go back to the question I was asking you. So you're on the inside. We're not.
Yeah.
Okay. But for you, within your space, just like there is within politics or within the military, there are anti-establishment generals or colonels or lieutenants. Like if you watch the movie Scent of a Woman, that was an anti-establishment colonel, right? You know who I'm talking about? Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, phenomenal, crushed it, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, you go in the political side, there's anti-establishment candidates. Some would say Kennedy's more anti-establishment. Some will say, I'm talking John F. Kennedy, not RFK, but even RFK could be anti-establishment. Some may say Trump may be anti-establishment. There's anti-establishment candidates, right? But then there's the establishment side. You were part of the establishment for many years, right? And let me kind of ask the question, push back, tear my argument apart, whatever you want. That's the whole reason why we're having this conversation. One may say you were establishment. You practiced, you followed the guidelines, you followed the laws, you followed the rules, you followed all that stuff. Did you during COVID, Doc, at all have a moment where you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what are they forcing down people to take this with this much research and we don't have the right kind of research. And look at the numbers that's coming up and why are they not willing to release this? Why are they putting such a long time for us not to get the data on this? Why is it that we can't sue these guys? Was there ever a moment during COVID for you where it's like a tipping point?
Yes, there was. But let me just go back and finish up our last conversation about peer review. There was a wonderful article. It was published in the New England Journal, actually, and it looked at the terms of the contracts between academic medical centers and the drug companies. So only about a quarter of the studies are done in academic medical centers. The rest are done in by for-profit research companies. But the ones that are done in the academic medical centers are going to be the highest quality studies. literally 50% of those contracts gave the drug companies the right to write up the results of the research, and the authors were suppressed to the point where they had the right to suggest revisions, but they couldn't make revisions. The drug company controlled the article. 50%.
Who allows that? You can't do that without the help of the government, though.
You don't need the government. What you need is a market that's not functioning, because the drug companies had pulled so much research out of the academic medical centers, and the academic medical centers needed that money. Managed care was coming in while this was happening, and they didn't have a lot of money in their pocket.
Okay.
They needed to attract that research money as much as they could. They ended up with about 25% of the research. But it was the market, because the contract research organizations were willing to abide by those regulations. The academic medical centers had to. So it was a dysfunctional market that was allowing the drug companies to write up 50% of these articles, and the peer review was a sham. There was no way to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, but isn't there a chairman of the board or a committee that's going to come in and say, what the hell are you guys doing? Because at this point, that means the doctors and the writers are slaves to these big pharmaceutical companies. And those are the ones that are making the big decisions for them, and they're telling them what to do. Is that kind of what it comes down to?
That's what it comes down to. So I was at a medical meeting, and I was sitting near an editor, not editor-in-chief, but a major editor of a major journal. And the meeting was over, and we got up to walk out. And I said to him, listen, why don't you guys demand the data from the trials that you're going to publish? It's pretty simple. The data's there. They could deliver it to you. It's a thing called a clinical study report. It's like 3,000 pages long. And they've already done it. They could deliver it. You could require it with the manuscript. And he said to me, before I took the next step, he said, requiring that data would be a death spiral for the journal. And what he's saying is, if we require data and other journals don't require the data, the companies won't submit their big articles to us. And a major part of the income of the journals, a major part of the income of the journals comes from selling reprints back to the company for their drug reps to hand out. And in 2005, 41% of the Lancet's income came from selling reprints. That's the last data there is. So he was admitting to me in sort of poetically economic language that they're in the business, the financial model that they're in is selling reprints back to the drug companies, and they can't behave in a way that's going to decrease their sales of those articles.
At what point were these data, was access to data available, and did an event happen to cause this data to be hidden? For example, when you think about some of the acts that they come up with, every industry has all these acts. In the financial industry, Investment Company Act of 1940, or all this other stuff, right? So there's one here where in 1986, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, right? Yep. NCVIA, became law.
Yep.
And what this did is it waived any liability for pharmaceutical companies and vaccine manufacturers for injuries or death caused by vaccine. Yep. 86, that's roughly 40 years ago, a little less than 40 years ago, right?
Yep.
Okay. Was there a time where data was available to the consumer to know, and researchers and doctors to look at, where Big Pharma came in, hired a lobbyist firm to work with a Congress or Senate to pass something that data doesn't need to be available to the public again?
No, it evolved slowly because the drug companies were doing this, but they didn't have complete control of the situation because 80% of the research was being done in academic centers. So the academic docs were seeing it. So this situation developed slowly, and now there's an organization called the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, the 13 biggest general medical journals in the world. They would be the body that would do this, but they've been tiptoeing in place.
Who's funding them?
They're the journals. They are the journals. So who's funding them is the sale of reprints and their subscribers.
Who owns them?
Their own.
I'm looking at them right now here. Parent organization and International Committee of, so it's themselves. It's International Committee of Journalists. Others, Vancouver Group, formerly. Okay, so they're purely not releasing all the information because they're worried it could hurt their top line revenue.
Correct. It'll hurt their impact factor. It'll hurt their reprint sales. Some of these journals are nonprofits. The New England Journal is a nonprofit. The Journal of the American Medical Association.
How many of these guys are out there? How many of these journals?
Oh, there are a million journals, but these are the 13 big ones.
So the 13 big ones, are they all independent nonprofits?
No. The Lancet's owned by Elsevier.
So if none of them are giving the data, then they're all on the same page together. So, and why is that? Is it kind of like, you know how they say, every single media company is really owned by 5 families? You know how you read those kind of articles that come out?
Yeah.
Are the same people running these 13 different organizations, or no, they're all 13 separate?
Basically, there are some journals that are different. The British Medical Journal, it's now called the BMJ, is different. But they're not as commercially involved. But the biggest journals are playing in this financial arena where the editors have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize their profits. And they're doing it.
Yeah, but who's exposing them? Who is calling them out? Who is, like, for example, at least if I have a New York Times, I got a New York Post, right? If I got a WAPO, Washington Post, I got a Washington Times, right? And they're going to be opposing each other. In the business side, if I got a Forbes, I got a Fortune, I got an Entrepreneur, I got an Inc., I got a Business Week, I got different guys that maybe will be challenging each other. I got CNN, I got Fox, I got MSNBC. There's competition, right? You mean to tell me there's nobody that's calling these guys out to their...
Patrick, that's why I'm sitting here. The mainstream media has put the lid on this. Nobody's covering it. Nobody is covering this. It's a tragedy. And we haven't even started to talk about the cost and the poor health of Americans that is largely tied into this. This is market failure. Milton Friedman, the ultimate capitalist, said that there are 3 things a government should do. It should preserve law and order, it should enforce private contracts, and it should make sure markets work. He said that in 1962 in his book, Capitalism and Freedom. And if we would go back to those 3 principles and apply them to the pharmaceutical industry and what's going on in healthcare, we would take a giant step forward away from this.
So it sounds like you're saying that the business model is all wrong, because if I'm creating a medical journal, I'm not getting paid subscriptions from a bunch of doctors that want to read that. What you're saying is that if I publish articles that are in line with what the pharmaceuticals want, they say, hey, thanks for the nice article. Thanks for everything that goes with that. I'll take 10,000 copies of it, and then I'm going to go give them to my sales reps to hand them out to America's allergist if I'm making an allergy drug. You're saying that's the business model. It's not thousands and thousands of doctors paying subscriptions. Because if it was, Forbes would compete with Fortune, and business people would subscribe to one or the other based on which they think is better information. You're saying that they're really not operating publications. They're operating printing services that are reprinting articles for the medical establishment driven by the pharmaceutical company.
Correct. There is some subscription fees, but they're not the major thing. The major sources of income are selling reprints and selling advertising to the manufacturers.
But then to me, this is what it comes down to. Who has brass to call them out? Who has brass to talk about it? And why don't the mainstream media people talk about it? For example, today we reacted to Charles Barkley being pissed off. Are you a football guy? You follow the NFL? Okay.
Bit.
He's pissed off about the fact that one of the main games was on Peacock. Okay,
right.
And I think it was Miami Dolphins against Kansas City, or whichever game.
I was pissed off too.
Okay, but you know what? To me, you know what I said? I said I love it, and let me tell you why. Because it kind of validates your point. He was pissed off, saying, "How could you do this?" And I understand it's all about money. Apparently, they got $110 million from Peacock. By the way, Peacock got 23 million viewers that watched it, record-breaking ever, right? Yeah. But why am I happy about it? This is why I'm happy about it. And kind of going to go back to you, because these Peacocks, Amazons, Netflix of the world, they rely on monthly subscription fee. They don't rely on advertisers. They rely mainly on monthly subscription fees. Okay, cable TV relies on what? Advertisers. And we know who's their biggest advertiser. I think cable TV is staying in business for 3 different reasons: sports, boomers, and big pharma. Okay, so the more they step away, the less big pharma can control. Just the other day, Travis Kelce, they reported, if you can pull this up, Rob, that Pfizer, you know how much Pfizer paid him to do the COVID vaccine commercial?
$20 million.
$20 million, right? $20 million. So for every one of these guys, and you're seeing their top line revenue, what they're doing, who's not afraid of them to call them out? Who's not afraid of big pharma, the journals, what's taking place? So just come out and say, guys, you're getting exposed. Who's that person or organization?
It's you, and it's other people who are trying to get to fill in what mainstream media is not willing to do. Mainstream media is not willing to talk about this. So Travis Kelce gets $20 million, and he also has this relationship with Taylor Swift, and God knows how that unfolded. But here's the story, to get back to your question about COVID. I was with the program during the early phases, during Operation Warp Speed, when the Republicans were throwing money at the drug companies, tons of money, to get it out, to get the vaccine out most quickly. We didn't know how bad this was going to be. It wasn't, you had to look and see if there were real warning signs, but it looked like it was safe, at least in the short term. And I was with the program. But now we've had 3 different boosters coming on, and Travis Kelce's on TV advertising the 3rd booster. There's been no randomized controlled data to support the use of those boosters. Now, that's just not okay. The FDA is approving these boosters with all the advocacy of the CDC and the experts who speak on TV saying, get the boosters. And we just don't know what the effect of the boosters is. We can go into the details of it if you want, but we don't know. I'm of a certain age, and I had a heart condition. Hopefully it's cured. I'm worried. I get the boosters, but I don't have data.
You got all 3 of them?
I got all 3 of them, but I don't have data that tells me it's okay.
Why did you get them?
I got them because the arrhythmia that I had that's now suppressed could be reactivated with COVID that went to the heart.
Arrhythmia that you had that could be reactivated that went to the heart.
Yeah.
Tell me what that means.
So I told you this story about being in the hospital.
15 months ago, yes.
Yeah, and having this arrhythmia.
You did an angio, went up, and also from the front. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was at death's door. I mean, I made my peace. I was ready to go. And this is serious business. I'm in a different risk-benefit situation than most people are. I'm also 75. So I'm in a different risk-benefit situation. So without randomized controlled data, just with antibody data and observational data, the second booster was actually approved with antibody data. Pfizer's vaccine was approved with antibody data from 8 mice. And Moderna did much better than that. They had antibody data from 10 mice. This is the second vaccine.
We have twice the data, sir.
Well, not
2
twice,
more.
but 25% more. Yeah. I'm telling the truth, and the FDA is letting this go on, and the CDC is picking it up. So there's no data. There's not data that it's bad. There's not data that it works. And I'm going to play my odds by getting the booster, knowing that I don't know what I'm getting. But you're young. You guys are young and healthy, and you may look at this situation and say, wait a minute, there's no data. We don't know long-term effects. We don't know if it prevents hospitalizations or serious illness. And you're not likely to get seriously ill if you get COVID. And you may decide, I'm going to pass until they get some good data out here that I can decide on.
I never got it. So I didn't get it. My wife didn't get it. Well, our kids didn't get it. But my dad, who's 81 today, he got the vaccine and got all the boosters. So did my nanny, who lives with us, been with us for 14 years. She's in her 60s. They chose to get it, and we totally supported them. And we ran a insurance company where we had to decide what guys wanted to do. And I said, you do what you want to do with your body. I'm healthy. And I got COVID. My wife got COVID. We all went through it. It was, the process we went through. But 70% of America's vaccinated. If you type in, Rob, what percentage of Americans are vaccinated? I want to say it's somewhere between 67 to 71% are vaccinated. You may know these numbers better than I do. Can you zoom in a little bit? What percentage of Americans are vaccinated? 70% of Americans are, give or take, vaccinated.
Right.
Okay.
And if you get to older folks, the percentage is higher.
Higher, right. So based on what you know now, and you, 75 years old, you said, I accept it. I made the decision. This is serious business, right? 15 months ago, this may be it for me, right? You're 73, 74 years old. So now that you know what you know, where do we go wrong? What mistakes did we make? Who should have never taken it? All the late night show forcing everybody to take it, and military being forced to retire or else. And, Bill Maher the other day is like, I took one for the team. I never wanted to take it. He had Seth MacFarlane on. He's debating him. He had Jimmy Kimmel on. He's debating him. All of these guys were forced to. So many. We had a guy that was a colonel before in the military. He got kicked out because they didn't want to take the vaccine. He's sitting here telling us the story. How many of those stories do we have to hear? Where did we go wrong when it comes down to the vaccine?
Well, let's go do the last first. It's very simple with the boosters. If we're going to have a booster campaign and we're going to recommend that Americans get it, and we're going to use public media, public service media to advertise it and try to create an imperative, you need randomized controlled trials. That's what science is. So the first booster was done on observational data from Israel. 1 out of 17 people took the booster. Israel approved the booster early, and it was a perfect situation where you could do a randomized controlled trial. It was not known whether it worked or not. Israel was first in line, and they could have easily gotten hundreds of thousands of people to go into a randomized controlled trial and could have produced data early. That's not what Pfizer did. I think it was Pfizer. What they did is they harvested data from the electronic medical records, and they compared the death rate from COVID in the people who chose to get the booster to the death rate from COVID in people who did not choose to get the booster. And they found that there was a 94% lower COVID death rate in the people who chose to get the booster. That was published in the New England Journal. It became evidence-based medicine. Everyone had to get a booster. And that was the truth, the scientific truth, and you couldn't challenge it. What came out just recently is that when you look at that same population of people, 94% fewer deaths from COVID and 94% fewer deaths from non-COVID illnesses. In other words, those people were 94% less likely to die of anything. They were healthier. You can't do an observational study because the people who choose to get a shot are different than the people who choose not to get a shot. Now, the FDA knows this well. I mean, this whole thing about hormone replacement that went crazy in the 80s and 90s, that we got it wrong, and millions of women took hormone replacement therapy, increasing their risk of breast cancer, and now it turns out dementia as well, because it was observational data. And the women who took the hormone replacement therapy were healthier because they were going to be healthier in the first place. And you could say that you could find the women who are going to be healthier by just seeing which ones chose to take hormone replacement therapy or not. So the FDA's been through this many times. They know that observational data are not reliable. I don't get it. Why the FDA does not insist on randomized controlled trials when they approve new vaccines and tell people they should get them.
So let's ask this question. Okay, so FDA is an organization that regulates and approves American companies, American pharmaceutical companies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have 195 countries, give or take 5, right? What other countries are stricter? There's only 2 companies that, if you were to say, well, the dollar thing is really in there, you know this, you've spoken about this, New Zealand and us. New Zealand did it in 1980, I want to take, give or take, when they're like, yeah, you know what, moving forward, we can advertise on TV. And U.S. is saying, hey, there's a big difference between big pharma and nicotine and cigarette companies. Why do we drop Marlboro? Why don't we not do Winston? What's the big difference? Well, because over here, this is actually can help. The other one cannot help. Okay, fine. That's your argument. Great. I don't agree with it, but fine. But there's 193 other countries that can sit there and say, no, let's make the best educated decision. There is not the level of big pharmaceutical profits being made there like we are. What are they doing? What do you notice in other countries doing that are saying, no, we're not with this?
Right.
Who is fully against the way we've been handling pharmaceuticals in America?
Okay. So New Zealand's the other country that does direct-to-consumer advertising. So it's interesting to compare the two. New Zealand has a very active national pharmaceutical program. They oversee which drugs are approved, and they evaluate the comparative effectiveness of different drugs. So this is a good test. In the United States, because we're the wild west of drug marketing and TV advertising, we spend by far the most on drugs of any of the wealthy countries. New Zealand has direct-to-consumer advertising. They spend the least of the wealthy countries on their drugs. So even though the countries have access to the same data, the national drug policy makes a huge difference. And this is where we may disagree, but there needs to be some kind of federal or quasi-governmental oversight of the information that the doctors and the public gets about drugs. We don't have that. We're the only wealthy country that doesn't have that. So that we've got the same bad information, and I don't know why the other countries haven't insisted on randomized controlled trials, but we've got the same bad information. But in the United States, it's much more effective at convincing doctors and patients to take the drugs without getting the information that New Zealand's going to offer to their citizens.
If you ask the average fairly informed person, and you just gave the description you had of New Zealand, the average informed person in America, I would think, would say, wait a minute, what you're just describing in New Zealand, isn't that what the FDA is supposed to be doing? What's the difference between, am I right? So what's the difference between what the FDA really does and what is happening in New Zealand?
Okay, this is really important. The FDA's job is to evaluate data about new drugs and to determine, excuse me, which of those drugs have a statistically significant efficacy and no evidence of harm that's greater than that. Excuse me.
and ultimately approve them for general use.
Approve them for general use, and doctors can't prescribe the drugs unless they're approved by the FDA. But the FDA does not inform doctors about how that drug compares to the best existing therapy and how many, it doesn't inform doctors about where that drug fits into optimal therapy. That's not the FDA's job. Other countries have another organization that does that. We don't.
So is that what you're describing New Zealand does?
Yes. Yes. And we're tiptoeing into it, but the political headwinds, I think, are going to sink it. The FDA approves drugs. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services is claiming the right to evaluate the efficacy, the benefits and harms in the real world of clinical practice to determine whether they're going to cover the drugs that the FDA approves. And we can talk about
cover, you mean CMS. Most people know what CMS is. Oh, CMS. They make decisions that affects my Medicare, Medicaid, and my costs. So you're saying CMS says, hey, we'll cover this drug for skin allergies of some sort. We're going to cover it. So CMS says they're going to cover it, and then a bunch of retired people say, yay, it's covered by Medicare. Now I can take that drug, correct?
Correct.
That's CMS.
CMS. And CMS is claiming the right, and it's been supported in court, to say that drug has not been proven to be effective for this population, and therefore we're not going to cover it for either for general use or for any use. And we're headed towards a political confrontation on this.
So let me see if I translate that. So CMS is saying, if we don't think this drug is good for the skin allergy, we're not going to approve it. We're not going to pay for it. Translation: taxpayer isn't going to pay for it under Medicaid for all these retired people. Medicare for all these retirement people that have Medicare. In fact, there's a showdown coming because. Are you about to say this is what the FDA thinks its job is? And that's where the showdown is between CMS and FDA or something else?
No, there's no question that the FDA, that's not the FDA's job. And it's important to understand that.
So where's the showdown there that you're talking about?
The showdown is going to come, there's a new drug to treat early Alzheimer's disease called Leqembi. And this drug could cost so much that it actually equals the total amount of money that Medicare Part B spends annually on drugs. It's cost $26,000 a year and another $82,000 for clinical oversight and monitoring. CMS is saying, we're not going to cover this drug unless you collect data in a registry so that soon we'll know how effective this drug is. The clinical trial upon which the FDA relied showed that it was statistically significant, but it didn't reach, the efficacy didn't reach being clinically significant. And the FDA's job is to do it on statistical significance, not clinical benefit. So CMS is taking this problem, which could cost the taxpayers a fortune, $40 billion a year, and CMS is saying, okay, FDA approved it, we're going to cover it, but we're only going to cover it if doctors put the data in a registry. So that sounds like good public policy. What happened is CMS has a registry that's going to collect the data that they need to figure out whether the drug's working and whether it's doing more good than harm. CMS has developed those criteria. In the label, it says you need to you should enter your patient in a registry, but it doesn't say enter them in the CMS registry. It says enter them in the ALSNet registry. The ALSNet registry is sponsored by the Alzheimer's Foundation. The two biggest contributors to the pharmaceutical contributors to the Alzheimer's Foundation are the two drug companies that are making these new drugs that are fantastically expensive. And the ALSNet registry is going to pay doctors $2,500 for signing up for this and $300 per visit for every visit that they register in the ALSNet registry. So the ALSNet registry is going to buy its way over the CMS registry, and now this drug company-sponsored organization is going to be determining what data they collect and how they're going to report it.
So you know what this makes me think about is the following way. So you're saying the only people that really have access to everything, all the data, is the pharmaceutical companies, right? They have the data.
And in litigation, Patrick, which is why I'm sitting here, because I spent 10 or 12 years in pharmaceutical litigation. In litigation, as an expert, you sign a confidentiality agreement,
okay,
and you get access to the computer hard drives from the drug companies. You get everything, and I know what's in there, and that's how I learned how important this stuff is. Because I know you guys are sitting there saying, this guy Abramson is telling this wild story. How the hell do I know that? I mean, it's just a crazy story, and why isn't it told before?
Oh no, I believe it. I just wonder why it hasn't. Why? So for example, financial industry. Okay, what's the one word stockbrokers cannot use with their clients that gets them in trouble? It's a G-letter word. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I guarantee you a 12% rate of return on this mutual fund, right? So okay. Okay, you coughed, I'm coughing, Tom, you're next. So hopefully you're ready for it.
You want me to cough or?
So no, you're good.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Wait
a minute.
So the question becomes the following, right? There's this thing called the stock market. You can go out there and tell me how well your stock is doing, but the stock market tells me how well you're doing. And there's this thing called quarterly earnings that I can go quarterly earnings and say, hey, your quarterly earnings, you expected to do this, you missed the mark, and your stock goes 5%, drops for a day. And hey, here's what they're doing. Hey, such and such is shorting your company. Kathy Wood or XYZ, Carl Icahn is shorting AIG and they want the CEO to be fired. Oh, shit. Whoever was short. Was it Carl Icahn was shorting whoever the CEO was at AIG, right?
And Pershing Square was shorting Herbalife. So there's big players.
There's big players. That's Ackman, I believe, and Ackman and Icahn got into it. So
correct.
But there's at least we, the public, sees it and says, wait a minute, what was that all about? Why is this stock doing this? Hey, I'd like to recommend you an investment company, Active American Mutual Fund with American funds. This fund has been around since 1934. Can I see the prospectus? Sure, here's what the prospectus looks like, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, this year was a big drop-off. What happened in the last 5 years? Your 5-year rate of return isn't 12%. And then you have to explain yourself, the financial advisor does. Why isn't somebody enforcing big pharmaceutical companies to give data on exactly what happened with these COVID vaccinations, what happened with the results, how many injuries do we have, what really took place? Everybody is just trying to delay it, right? Delay it. And even recently, the story comes out with Anthony Fauci saying the fact that, where is the story? I think it's this one right here, saying the fact that Fauci's former boss concedes COVID lab leak was not a conspiracy theory. That's just a story that came out yesterday, right? And Fauci is out there using the legendary line, which I don't recall. Dr. Francis Collins, do you know Dr. Francis Collins? Former head of the NIH, testified in a closed-door session with the House Coronavirus Subcommittee, admitting that the COVID lab leak theory was credible. This marks a significant shift from his earlier characterization of its very destructive conspiracy. House Republican leading the hearing revealed that Dr. Collins acknowledged the credibility of the leak hypothesis, contradicting Fauci's previous stance. They also accused both doctors of using their influence to pressure researchers into favoring a natural origin theory over the lab leak theory regarding COVID's origin. I mean, people are sitting there saying, wait a minute, we bought that it wasn't. So why isn't there an organization or institution that's forcing these guys to give us the data?
Okay, two answers. One is there's an Office of the Inspector General report that was filed in January of 2023.
Okay.
The Office of the Inspector General found that there was a grant from the NIH to EcoHealth in 2014. And some of that money went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But Obama had put a ban on gain-of-function research. So they couldn't do gain-of-function research. EcoHealth filed its reports with the NIH through 2017. When Trump came in, he lifted the ban on gain-of-function research, meaning making viruses more virulent and more dangerous. He lifted the ban, and EcoHealth stopped filing reports to the NIH. And there are no reports that were filed after the gain-of-function ban was lifted. And the NIH had to know that they didn't have the reports. And this Office of the Inspector General, you can Google it, the report is out there. So we were funding research, and we didn't know what the research was doing.
So let me ask Sarah. So you just answered what happened in that case. In the financial services industry, prospectuses are everywhere, and it's law. They have to be out there. And people that saw the popular movie The Big Short, you can see Michael Burry, the somewhat challenged but genius from San Jose, California, says, I've read the full report. I know the mortgages are in here. I've looked at several samples. And ultimately, the Steve Carell character takes the same report, goes down to South Florida, and checks out some neighborhoods. So in the financial services industry, the answer is the law is that in some of these prospectuses, the complete data is available. You just answered what happened with that particular report. The question is, what is preventing, what law is there or is there and written poorly that this information is not available to maybe a research physician like Michael Burry that wants to look at it? So where is that problem?
Right. Now we're narrowing in on the real problem. And the problem is that the drug company's job, they're executives because they're paid largely in stock options and stocks. They're investors, the private equity firms, the hedge funds. Their job is to maximize the profits that are derived from the pharmaceutical industry.
Sure, and this is the moral hazard, but where's the law that would say, hey, if you're going to have this research report and they're going to be peer-reviewed, somewhere there has to be the Magna Carta, the Rosetta Stone, the original research and stuff that goes with it. How is that not available? Is there no law that says it has to be out there?
It's not available. One of the slides I sent you was Pfizer talking about data, and they're saying scientific data. The drug company, Pfizer, owns the data. They're not going to release the data. And furthermore, they admit very bluntly that the purpose of the data is to support their marketing, not to improve the health of Americans, but to support their marketing. So the business side of this has taken over, and the scientific oversight has been whittled away by the profit motive, the profits that are going to the academic medical centers and to the academic researchers and to the drug companies and to the journals and to the nonprofits that are accepting pharmaceutical money. And what we've got is this massive market failure where money is coloring what doctors think they know about healthcare. And this is a real problem. I mean, you guys tell me, you're much more into financial markets than I am. But my understanding is that when you get a market failure of this magnitude, you need government to come in and straighten it out.
Got it. So In financial services, I'm one of the big banks, Bear Stearns, and I own the data that was in that mortgage fund, that covering fund, basically, a mutual fund of all the mortgages. But the law says that I had to make all that data available. I own the data. I own that this is my product that I'm selling to people, this mutual they're buying. Okay, what you're saying in pharmaceuticals is Merck may own the data, but there's no law out there that says Merck has to make that available to other doctors or anybody for expansion.
That's exactly right.
So no president on the left or the right has forced them to give that data to the public.
That's
or the
exactly
doctor.
right.
Okay, so let's go back to this.
There's the problem.
When I'm looking at this here, do you trust Dr. Anthony Fauci?
Do I trust him? I saw Dr. Fauci get out over his skis with the initial vaccine, saying it was safe when it had only been used for 2 months and nobody could know whether it was safe. I think they implied that it would decrease transmissibility and that would justify the mandates. I think that was not in the data. So I think at that point, I thought he was like an overly zealous Boy Scout who thought he was doing the right thing by overselling beyond the knowledge the vaccines. At this point, with the boosters not having any randomized controlled trials, I don't know what's going on there. Something's going on there. I don't know what it is. How the U.S. government can allow the FDA to approve these boosters and to market them as actively as they do with no randomized controlled trials completely escapes me. I don't get it.
You know what confuses me a little bit, and I'm curious to know what you'll say about this, because when I'm looking at the data here, the same person we're talking about, NIH Director Francis Collins, formalized collaboration with the Chinese Academy of Military Science in 2015 under Obama, according to the book, and shared a photo that that year of him with the Chinese Academy of Military Sciences president, okay? And they're explaining what's going on here, and then, Fauci's kind of like, I don't want to, I'm not involved, we're not doing anything, gain of function isn't happening. You've seen the Rand Paul asking him over and over and over and over and over again. Here's where I'm at with this here. At that time, everybody is saying there's no way this Operation Warp Speed is going to get done. There's no way. This is going to take 1.5 years. Kamala Harris, would you ever take the vaccine under Trump? I would never take it. I would never take a vaccine that's not tested. This is our vice president saying this on TV. And then what happens? Election is done. 2 days later, the vaccine is available. But after the election, exactly 2 days later. And then who promoted it to the world? Everybody on the left. Sold it to the world. And if you didn't, Twitter took your videos down. YouTube took your videos down. YouTube wouldn't let Peter McCullough's stuff stay up, whether it's Malone, whether it's all of these guys.
Military took your job.
From your world, the industry you're a part of, that all supported what Fauci was doing, and Fauci was God to people in the medical world. He couldn't do anything wrong in the face of anybody, because God forbid, if you at all said anything Fauci did wrong, you would potentially be a Republican. And you can't be a Republican, Doc. If you're labeled as a Republican, that's a curse word to somebody like you, maybe, right? You're coming from Harvard. I went to a Harvard OPM program. This is when I realized I will never go back to Harvard. Let me explain it to you. I'm at a Harvard OPM program for 3 weeks. It's an owner-president management program, okay? I didn't go Harvard MBA like you went to Harvard, 1974 Harvard College. It's part of Harvard. I've never been anything with Harvard. It's just one of those executive programs I go to. Guess what debate is taking place while I'm there? The legendary debate, Trump against Hillary. I'm in Chow Hall. You know where Chow Hall is? On the business side, the Asian billionaire who, the restaurant, the Chow where everybody eats, it's called Chow Hall. His name is Chow Hall, right? Not Chow like military Chow Hall when I was in. I thought that's what it was called, but no, it's called his name, Chow Hall. His picture's even in there. I say, let me go watch this debate. I go in there and watch a debate. I'll see all the teachers, all the professors that work at this incredible institute called Harvard. And 100% of them booed Trump, and 100% of them cheered for Hillary. You know what I realized happened to Harvard? They're all deaf, because they're all around the same people that all agree with them. Here's an institution with $60 billion of endowment cash sitting there for them who all agree with each other. That's when I realized that's no longer a university. That's an echo chamber. It's not a university. And this is why when, you're thinking there's so much about the people and all this other stuff, unfortunately for myself, you're like, well, now that everybody's not allowed to come to school and on campus, do we still have to pay the same amount of tuition to come to school? Because we're not using boarding. We're not using this. You still do. I said, wait, you still want the students to pay for that? Yeah. So during COVID, the level of force from the left, the level of you do this or else, the level of silencing of the people that simply disagree with you. And by the way, it wasn't even non-doctors and non-experts. There was a guy in Bakersfield, this one doctor that was telling, I'm just asking questions. Why are we doing this? Why am I supposed to put this death as a COVID death? This was not a COVID death. But no, you're supposed to category put it. The video gets 15 million views, 2 doctors sitting there, video is taken down 24 hours later. So it's not like during that time, it was just the non-health experts that were being silenced. It was anybody that disagreed with Fauci's position was being silenced.
Right.
Now it's 2024. Do you have anything to say about how the left mishandled COVID, led by Fauci's policies? Because Fauci is the one that was telling everybody what's the right thing for us to do and trust the science and wear 3 masks. We're taking pictures with masks. Then the cameras comes off. Everybody takes their masks off. People are not dummies sitting there saying, wait a minute, don't patronize me. Don't make me do something you don't want to do, but behind closed doors, you're doing it because it's a political party. That's where I saw in a regular world. I'm running an insurance company at our event. We have 10,000 people at our event. Half are Democrats, half are Republicans. But everybody was like, what the hell is going on here? These are valid concerns.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Absolutely. There is a bias on the left to support public health measures. It's a bias. There's also something going on with drug company money. And let me tell you a story that will make some news in the beyond. The story comes from the Boston Globe, but it hasn't gotten out, and it is very newsworthy, and it addresses exactly the question you ask. Claudine Gay just got fired as the president of Harvard University. She had plagiarized, which I think, I'm not an expert on this, but I think that meant missing quotation marks and not citing references. And that's not a good thing. An academic should not do that.
You sound like you're defending her, though.
Let me finish my story, and you won't be ready to pounce on me.
Okay.
I promise. She gets fired, and Alan Garber, who's been the provost of Harvard, gets appointed the temporary president. Okay? So that's what happened. Those are the facts. Alan Garber's salary as provost has been about $940,000 a year. I assume it's market value. I don't have a complaint. Since 2017, he's been on the board of 2 pharmaceutical companies. He's the provost of Harvard University, and he's been on the board of 2 pharmaceutical companies, and his annual salary from these 2 board positions is more than his salary from Harvard. It's $960,000.
Okay.
One of those 2 companies is Vertex Pharmaceuticals. They're selling their drug that is a revolutionary drug that decreases the pulmonary consequences of cystic fibrosis by about 14%, and they're selling this drug for $322,000. It costs them to make less than $6,000. So we've got the provost of Harvard University in a position of direct conflict of interest in talking about the public health consequences of this. Now, this hit me hard because I was teaching, I'm not on the faculty anymore, but I stepped down a year ago. But I was teaching healthcare policy at Harvard for many years. And one of the case studies we taught all the first-year students at Harvard Medical School was if Medicaid ran out of money, what the students in each seminar group, if Medicaid ran out of money, what services would you cut to have the least impact, to engage the students with this?
Great question.
Yeah. And do you cut out eyeglasses every other year? Do you cut out transportation to doctors? So forth. What they didn't talk about is that Vertex's drug costs $322,000 and costs $6,000 to make And somebody ought to be negotiating with these guys to get a fair price.
Is that a dosage or an annual?
Annual.
So 360. If you got this terrible rare condition, it's $30,000 a month or 360 a year.
A little bit less, probably 28 or 27 a month.
Okay, but that was an annual figure, and it cost $6,000 to make.
Yeah. Yes. And the hepatitis C drugs that cost $1,000 a pill, $84,000 for a course of treatment, and they're sold for $1,000 in India where it's generic. So what we've got is this enormously unfair, hyper-profitable situation. We've got the provost of Harvard, who's now the acting president of Harvard, sitting on 2 boards. And in healthcare policy, they're not teaching that you can't let the market set these prices. They have monopolies.
But that makes sense to me why Harvard would put somebody like that as the board. That makes sense to me because Harvard's no longer a university. Harvard's no longer, to me, as a university. It makes sense for me to put somebody there that owns them, which is another big for Rob. Can you pull up the article of the top 10 most expensive, and I want to validate what he's saying. Here's the top 10 most expensive drugs in America as of January 15th per year. Hemgenix, $3.5 million per one-time dose. Okay, let me say that one more time. $3.5 million per one-time dose. Go to the next person. Go to the next one. Okay. Elevidys, $3.2 million. You can go to the next one.
I don't disagree with this, and the price is awful. It is important to point out that these are one-time treatments.
I totally get it, but still, $3 million. Oh my God! This next one, Skysona, $3 million. You can keep going, Lord, just to kind of show the numbers. So when he's saying $300,000, some people are like, "That's a lot of money." It's a 1/10 of many of these other 2.8 million. There's plenty we can go through here. But again, to go back to the question you made about. I'm trying to see the point you were trying to make. So were you trying to say, because Claudine Gay was a DEI hire. That's what she was. She was a DEI hire because she was a woman and she was African American. And nowadays, you get extra points when you hire somebody with DEI because the money people are very happy with you when you do something like that. There's a big feud right now. United Airlines CEO is talking about the fact that their pilots, the goal is to have 50% of them be women and of color. Why do we care about hiring based on women and of color? What if these girls don't want to be pilots when they grow up? What if there's a bigger percentage out of 100 kids, 100 boys, say 30% want to be pilots when they grow up, 100 girls under the age of 12, maybe 3 want to be pilots when they grow up. Why are you trying to change that if that doesn't make sense? So that's my problem with Harvard. But let me go back to it again. Everything I just said, you still haven't answered my question. The market on the left looks at Fauci as God, as he can't do anything wrong, and they're so afraid to criticize him. The only person that did, they kicked him out of his party, and his family even pretty much disowned him. His name is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Did you read the Fauci book he wrote on, did you read the case against Anthony Fauci?
Yeah, if you read it, the first words in that book are a quote from me. The first words. That the pharmaceutical industry has taken over the knowledge that doctors have. In the introduction,
what did you think about the book on things he said about Fauci?
I think that RFK is a very smart guy. He works really hard, and he gets a lot of things right. But in my opinion, he doesn't have a firm grasp of his own desire to prove his points, his confirmation bias. Such as when he was on Joe Rogan's show in June, he cited an article that said that he claimed said that vaccinations have never saved any lives. And I looked that up because that didn't sound right, and it's not right. He cited the article wrong. But RFK Jr. works so fast that it's very hard to keep up with him in real time. So nobody can debate him. And I don't blame people for not debating him because he's bringing in new data. If he would stick to the data, to what he said on the Rogan show, then I think I'd debate him. If he was locked into that position.
What does that even mean, though? I don't understand what you just said right there, because so you're now probably bringing up that Dr. Paul Hotez was not willing to talk to RFK because that was going on, and I remember that.
Yeah.
What do you mean if he sticks to what he said to Joe Rogan?
No. you put the two things together. It's impossible to debate RFK Jr.
Why is that?
in real time because he's a voluminous reader and he's interpreting things. Sometimes when he interprets articles, there's bias, that he interprets the article to confirm what his predisposition.
But you guys do that more than he does.
Who am I, you guys?
Do you mean the opposite side, right? Everybody does. So
No, time out. I spent a lot of time in litigation.
Okay.
You cannot do that in litigation. You'll get torn apart by the drug company lawyers.
By the drug company lawyers. Has Anthony Fauci ever said anything incorrect when it comes on to citing studies and research and gain of function and any of that stuff?
Yeah,
has he ever said anything incorrect?
Yeah.
Has any big pharma company sued Anthony Fauci?
I don't think so. But
why not, though?
Because his bias is selling COVID vaccines.
That's exactly the point. So that's the part where that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. How is it that the guy he's been a director of NIH for how many years? 36 years, 38 years? I don't know what the numbers are. Long ass time, right? Yeah. He's been there for a long time. So why is he so protected? Why is he so protected? Why is he so protected that the guy is pretty much, they should make Untouchables 2 and have him be in a cast with a handful of other people because he's untouchable.
I don't blame you for having that opinion. I have some of that opinion. But I think what Fauci has been doing has been good for the pharmaceutical industry.
I agree.
And I think I want to take this up a level because you guys are talking about the prospectuses and how the financial companies, the banks and so forth, their job is to maximize their profits, and they make these prospectuses, and if they don't tell the truth, they're in deep trouble.
By law.
By law,
yeah.
Correct. The pharmaceutical industry is different than that because their job is to maximize their profits, just like the money guys. And they're doing it damn well.
They buy guys like him out, and they can't buy an RFK out. And that's why, can you imagine an RFK as an independent guy who the mainstream media didn't want to have him on? He got all the traction that he got from doing podcasts.
Right.
And this guy's father got assassinated and his uncle got assassinated, and his father would have been a president and his uncle was a president. And they were probably the most beloved anti-establishment Democratic president family of all time. They fought against the establishment.
Right.
Today's Democrats don't fight the establishment. They defend the establishment. It's a very weird dynamic. So I feel like his family changed and they became establishment. And to me, RFK is like, listen, guys, I'm following my dad's legacy. I'm following my uncle's legacy. So to me, when he went around talking and nobody wanted to debate him, it's exactly why. So because he's so well read that his opponents fear him. They know he will school them.
That's not fair, Patrick.
You don't think so?
That's not fair.
Okay, push back. I'm open to it.
I agree with about 70% of what RFK has to say. He's a smart guy. He's articulate. He's committed. And that 70% I respect tremendously. B, he controls any debate because he's read more articles far and wide, but he's not censoring himself enough. If he would have fact checkers to check the positions he's taking before he goes public with it, then there'd be something.
Perfect. So how about we do this? You just made a basis for it, right? So are you friends with Paul Hotez? Are you in communication?
No.
Okay.
No.
So would you debate an RFK in a long-form podcast, let's just say with Joe? You go on Joe because both of you guys have been there as well. And there's 2 or 3 fact checkers sitting there the entire time fact checking you and fact checking RFK. Would you be open to that?
No, because you can't go fast enough. This is what I was saying before, but I took it out of context and you didn't understand it. He went on Joe Rogan's show, I think last June, and he made a number of cases.
Okay.
I haven't thoroughly analyzed the whole tape, but I saw one instance where he was definitely wrong. What I'm saying is that's his position as of June 2023.
Right.
If he wanted to debate based on those positions, don't bring in 100 new articles that you've interpreted that nobody can possibly check in real time because it takes hours. But if he stayed, like in a deposition, when I was doing litigation, the lawyers would say, you can only talk about what's in the four corners of this report. If what he said on Rogan, if the claims he made on Rogan was a report and he had to stay within the four corners of that report, then I'd debate him.
It just would tell me the other guys, your opponent is more prepared and well-read than you.
No, he's reading far and wide, but he's the one who's the arbiter of what it says. You can't read everything. Patrick,
you're right. I agree. Yeah. No, I don't dispute
you can't.
that.
So he's out in the lead. He's very fast and he's very smart. But he's looking for things that confirm his biases, and he's making some mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying he's making mistakes. So you say 70-30 RFK. Where do you put Fauci at? If you can put him like that 70-30, where do you put Fauci when he talks?
I don't want to put a number on it, but
Is it higher, or do you trust Fauci more than RFK?
No. I've seen this fall apart. No,
okay, then
I think Fauci is exposed to real risk here.
How? He's protected. RFK is not protected.
I don't.
How is RFK protected? Who protects RFK? Honestly,
nobody.
Nobody.
But nobody.
Who protects Fauci?
Right. There's an entire institution that protects Fauci.
Doc, he's protected by mainstream media,
yes.
Celebrities, big pharma.
Yes.
Do you see who the bully here is?
We're on the same page.
Yeah, so to
it's all going to break. Whatever your issue is, whether it's Republican, Democrat, in government, out of government.
I'm establishment, anti-establishment. I'm not at all Republican, Democrat. Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell are best friends. That's not a Democratic Republican thing.
That's exactly.
They're best friends. They're just giving stories to how close those two are.
That's right.
This is
That's
not.
right.
This is
no,
not.
It's about pharma making money. We've got to get our eyes on that.
But I get that. But I think the part where people look away is, on the. For example, okay, everybody. None of us had a clue who this guy was, except for people that were in the space. If you're in the space, okay, or people that were maybe older, above 16, you remember in the 80s with AIDS?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I remember this guy's name was Ron and AIDS, where, that drug, and, they were selling the NZT, and then, and by the way, later on there was a movie called AZT, which
and the protease inhibitors.
NZT is from the movie Limitless, but they got the name NZT from AZT, that Fauci. Anyways, so you're like, oh, okay, I don't know that. Okay, maybe he's a noble guy. And then all of a sudden people are coming out that work with him, and here's what he went, Okay, I mean, everybody talks shit about everybody. Fine, I don't need to buy. No, but there's yeah, you guys just don't like the guy. You're just hating on the guy. I say, oh, no, this guy could be a dark guy that's bot, that's defending everybody. Motive, now we got to find out what this guy's really all about. Then everybody flipped, because the hypocrisy kept showing up with who this guy really was all about. So now let's go to a different part. Fines, okay, pharmaceutical and fines. I pulled up what type of fines these guys have paid. Okay, if you want to pull this up, Rob, biggest fines at the highest level is $3 billion. That's GlaxoSmithKline. And this was, again, off-label promotion, kickbacks, same thing they paid for. Most of them are the same thing. Pfizer in 2009, $2.3 billion, same thing, off-label promotion, kickbacks. Johnson.
Let me just say something. I consulted to the FBI and the Department of Justice on that case.
In 2009?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
They came to you, or you went to them?
I went to them.
Oh, wow.
I did civil litigation. It was most of that was about a drug called Bextra, which was like Vioxx. And I was in civil litigation about that. There were 10,000 people. It wasn't as big a drug as Vioxx. There were, I think, 47,000 people in the Vioxx litigation. And I knew about what happened. And I called the DOJ blind and said, I know something about this drug, but I can't tell you because I've signed a confidentiality agreement. And they sent out I don't know if it was a federal marshal to deliver a federal subpoena to my house. And they said, you will be at FBI headquarters at such and such a date, and you will bring your computer. And I went and I told them what I knew, what I had learned in civil litigation. They keep their cards close to their chest. They were really up to date. They were crackerjack lawyers. And that was the end of the discussion. And 6 months later, I read in the paper that there was a $1.1 $1.95 billion fraud case that Pfizer pled guilty to fraud, and they paid this fine. Now, a very important fact here is that the Pfizer pled to a felony in this case, but Pfizer didn't take the hit. A subsidiary took the hit, and that's the way this game is played. So when these big fines are meted out by the Department of Justice, the companies have subsidiaries take the hit, so the parent company isn't at risk of getting banned from Medicare. And so the CEOs don't go to jail, and the drug companies aren't at risk of losing their Medicare business. And there's very little disincentive not to try to get away with this, because rarely do the fines add up to the amount of ill-gotten profits.
I wonder, and by the way, there's multiple billion. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 fines that Eli Lilly, Abbott Laboratories, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Glaxo, these guys paid. That's over $1 billion. And you got a bunch of other ones here as well. Amgen, another Glaxo, TAP, Sereno, Merck, Purdue at 601. I can list all of these guys, right?
Yeah.
They're getting fined. But to them, they're sitting there saying, I don't really care. We sold this pharmaceutical for so much money, pennies on a dollar to make it. We're selling it for $5,000. We'll pay the fine. Go ahead,
right.
If it makes you happy. With what happened the last 4 years, do you think we're going to have something coming up where it's a actual accountability, record-breaking type of fine that we've not seen before? Or do you think nothing's going to happen to these guys?
I don't see it happening. I see it's a game. It's just business. It's business as usual. Unless people go to jail or unless companies are barred from participating in Medicare, it's not going to stop. Their job is to maximize their profits. And if there's a $2 billion fine, so be it.
Are you following this new thing they're talking about at the Davos, the disease X that World Economic Forum talked about? It could kill 20 times more than COVID-19. Have you followed any of this or no? Yeah, they just started talking about it this week. It's this disease X that it just came out a few hours ago. World leaders to meet, discuss threat of hypothetical disease X pandemic in Davos that could kill 20 times as amount of people as others. How concerned are you for someone that has been in this space? You said your age earlier, 75, and you had a procedure last year where you're dealing with a cardiologist and, doing certain things to you where you were kind of worried, saying this could be it for me. How worried are you of the next pandemic, of the next virus that can be deadly? Does that at all concern you, or do you think it's just they're trying to sell fear porn to us to find ways to sell us another pharma or another shot?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. I'm worried. I mean, I don't know where COVID came from. It might well have come from the lab. It may have well have come from gain-of-function research. It might not. It could have come from natural sources. And you got to worry about that stuff. But I'm equally worried about the pharmaceutical companies exaggerating the risk and tinkering with the threats so that they can make more money. If the profits of the pharmaceutical company, this goes back to the filings with the SEC and the financial prospectuses. If that doesn't get straightened out, and if the pharmaceutical industry doesn't have to present its real data to doctors and the public, this stuff is going to keep going on because their job is to maximize their profits. And as long as they're not held accountable by anybody, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. And I write a book, it's got to be 5 years behind the times by the time it gets into print, and the litigation takes 10 years, and it takes a long time. But we're not making progress. Pharma's moving faster in their direction than we can catch up to them.
Who is we that can do something about it? Is it because to me, I sat there and I said, okay, where can you hurt these guys where maybe they're going to wake up and be like, oh shit, that's actually going to be felt. First thing you think about is, okay, what if they can't advertise on TV anymore? What if they can't pay a Travis Kelce $20 million? What if they can't do something like that? Does that hurt their pockets a lot? Because when you look at their budget about how much money they spend every year on advertising, Sky Rizzy, $383 million last year. Rinvoq, however way you pronounce these words, $351 million. Dupixent, $307 million. I can give all they're spending so much money advertising every year. Do you think if they stopped and said, listen, moving forward, No more. The only country can do it is in New Zealand. We're also green. It's not going to happen. We are a capitalist nation, but you're kind of messing up. You did not gain a lot of credibility during COVID. No more advertising for you guys. Is that enough of a pain to these guys?
I don't think it's going to happen. A good lawyer explained to me that our First Amendment is different than the First Amendment in other countries. And because you mentioned it before, because there are beneficial uses of drugs, unlike cigarettes, you can't ban the advertising. But that doesn't matter because you could make the advertisements say how much better Skyrizi or any drug, not to pick on Skyrizi, is better than the best available therapy, and how many people you have to treat to have one person get a result that you couldn't get with the other drugs, and how much it costs in the total drugs that are sold for how much it costs to have one person improve. You could put all that into an ad so it was genuinely educational. So you don't have to take on a constitutional issue. You can just make them present data that is the rational data that doctors and patients need to make a good decision. And we don't have a government, and we were talking about this before, we don't have a government organization that does that, but you could do it if they want to advertise, then you got to tell the truth.
They would need to be an organization that can't take a penny from a pharmaceutical company. You know what I'm saying? Like it almost needs to be something where because immediately, who's going to be knocking on their doors? Right. Hi, this is John Doe. I'm a lobbyist representing XYZ company. We love your work.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And that's happening again with another lobbyist.
Absolutely. It'd be like the registry for Leqembi, and it's taken over by the Alzheimer's Association. So I think the answer to your question, we're in a deep hole here. We've got 1.1 million Americans are dying above and beyond the deaths in the other wealthy countries because our health and healthcare is so inferior. 1.1 million people a year. That's 3,000 a day. It's like a 9/11 every day. And for this health care and health, we're spending in excess $2.3 trillion a year. I know you're worried about the military-industrial budget collusion and the military budget. I'm all with you. We're wasting 3 times more than the entire military budget. And our health is just falling further and further behind. It's a national crisis. Mainstream media won't cover it. It's it's like 9/11 dominated our consciousness for years and years. This is happening every day to Americans, and we've got to address it.
No, we're on the same page here with we're on the same page here with this. You know, you sit there and you think about what direction we're going right now, and all these different fears they sell us about. Hey, you got to be careful with this. Hey, you got to be careful with that. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're imposing yourself too much on me. By the way, from your eyes, specific individual or organization, okay, who do you think is enemy of the state? Meaning, if you were to say, well, I think World Health Organization doesn't have the best in mind for us, or NIH, or Fauci, or Big Pharma, or this, or that, who would be the ones that the average person watching is saying, I got to watch those guys? Who would you say that top?
You got to watch them because they're bad or because they may be helpful?
Both.
Well, I think the World Health Organization is generally on the right side of things. They don't have access to perfect data, but I don't see them.
World Health Organization is on the right side of things?
I think so.
You think so? Yeah. Do you think World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, and Cedros, they're on the right side of things?
I don't know about them.
Do you think Tedros, who runs World Health Organization, he's on the right side of things?
I think they're generally on the right side of things. They do say that 80% of cardiovascular disease can be prevented by lifestyle modification and being able to participate in a healthy lifestyle. They're not trying to get everybody on statins and the other cholesterol-lowering drugs. They're taking a genuine public health perspective about how can we optimally improve health and not having our go-to position being relying on pharmaceuticals.
Who else? Who else, good or bad, to look out for?
I think Public Citizen does a good job of analyzing what's going on in American medicine. And there are organizations like the therapeutics initiative out of the University of British Columbia does a great job of analyzing medicines as best they can, because they don't get the data. They're not in litigation. So there are organizations, Farmed Out does a good job. There are organizations that are trying to look at this critically, but we're shut out. They and I are shut out of the mainstream media, and we're missing. All there is this enormous financial push from pharma to convince people and their doctors that the way to better health and more fulfilling lives is through better biotechnology. And that's just not the case. But some people benefit. I benefited from better biotechnology. But on the whole, we're not spending our money the right way. We should be spending 20% of our health has to do with healthcare, but we're spending almost all of our money on drugs and devices. And that's not the way to get better health. We're letting the market allocate the research funds so that 96% of the information that doctors get is about drugs and devices, and 4% is how to make Americans healthier. We need research, and the reason for that is because the research about how to make Americans healthier doesn't make money for anybody. It's going to cost the pharmaceutical industries money. And we need some way to get the knowledge that doctors believe is the appropriate range of knowledge to represent what the doctors need to know about how to make people and their communities healthier.
I would disagree with that a little bit. It sounded like you were done, so I apologize if you felt I just cut you off there. There is going to be a rational player in our White House at one point. And that rational player is going to look at the Social Security and Medicare and those trust funds that are bound to wear out, right, and to go broke. And they're going to be looking around and saying, how do we get lifestyle information to seniors so that everything in life isn't just, well, the health, that'll go to my doctor and get a pill. You know, and there's going to be people talking about it, about how do we get ahead of lifestyle, and you know, why are we allowing soda in schools? A lot of good things are going to come out of this to say, hey, you know what? You know, overweight as a kid is overweight as an adult, is obese as a senior, as is a diabetic patient. And you're on somebody's spreadsheet today because that's a good thing. Oh, wow, Ozempic. Well, we'll take care of you, right? Well, somebody's going to be in the White House, and somebody's going to say, hey, we got to get lifestyle is a very sensible investment, and it's going to save a lot of this Social Security and Medicare so we don't go further into debt and we can take it. Somebody's going to be standing out there. Let me go to Pat's question back to you. Who do you think, obviously it's you, you're talking about, the media knocks me down, the mainstream media. Well, the mainstream media is taking pharmaceutical ads, so I'm sure they're told not to cover your book and not to interview you. Okay, you know, to me that makes sense. There's no conspiracy there. It's a left-right analysis of an economic decision. Who are the enemies of pharma? When pharma looks out there, who do they feel are their enemies? Who the pharma fears? Right. Who do they fear?
That's a good list.
Who are they?
Yeah. Pharma fears this discussion happening more broadly.
For what reason specifically? We've covered a lot of things.
For the reason that they now control what doctors believe is good health care. And they do not want to relinquish that.
So data going public that everybody can inspect, peer reviews that are true peer reviews going back to data. No, we don't want that. Okay. Right. What else don't they want?
An epidemiologically balanced research agenda. They don't want that.
So they don't want rules and constructs into the research and everything back there.
Well, not rules and constructs, but instead of spending 96% of our research money as allocated by the market, because that's where the profit is, the maximum return on investment, we should be allocating our research money based on what Americans need to be healthier, and they don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I meant, and I used the wrong words. But okay. That's exactly what I meant.
So far, let's see what else he's going to say, Tom. Go for it. What else would you say to that list?
Okay, ask the question again.
What does the big pharma fear the most?
They fear anything that's going to cut into their profits. And any politician who takes a stance that's going to cut into their profits is going to come up against enormous resistance from the drug companies. 2/3 of the legislators in both parties take money from the drug companies. This is not a partisan issue. Republicans.
I fully agree.
Yeah. And I hope that your listeners come away from this not thinking, did the left win or did the right win? We lost if they're thinking that.
The only thing we saw is the left promoted the vaccine like no other. mainstream, late night, celebrity, talent, Hollywood, sports. They promoted it like no other. Like they were hardcore preacher pastors. There was a religion of taking the vaccine, and they were prophets promoting it.
Patrick, I agree. Without qualification, I agree.
Yeah.
But it has to do with pharmaceutical profits. That is where the brakes are off. And until there is enough public understanding in the healthcare professionals and non-healthcare professionals about how this is disserving the American people. There are 1.1 million excess deaths. We're wasting the equivalent of the federal budget deficit every year on healthcare. And until the people bring that to the public consciousness, pharma's money is going to control the debate. So when you say the people were out marketing COVID, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And if they're going to market COVID better through Republicans, they'll do that. And if they're going to do Democrats, they'll do that. They're just interested in money.
They don't care who it is. They don't care. Which people. They just want to promote the product.
Right.
I agree with you.
Right. And what we got to do going forward is get rid of this left-right dichotomy and figure out what's going to be right for the American people and how can we get Americans talking about what's the way to handle this where you've got a crisis.
Do you think our patent laws, you know how they kind of kept going back and forth changing it? It used to be 20 years. The two senators or congressmen, one of them was a Republican, one was a Dem. They lowered it to 14 years. Then they brought it back up to 20 years. And then you know how they're able to, by manipulation of evergreen and changing slight few laws, few things about the patent or the drug to extend another 18 years on patent. You think patent laws need to be changed? You think Congress needs to take a look at the patent laws?
Yes, I do. And the patent thickets, I mean, the pharmaceutical folks are light years ahead of who's ever trying to catch them on these issues. The drug price negotiations, they'll do a little bit, but they're mostly for show. And pharma is crying like they're going to, get their privates busted. No, it's going to cost, in real terms, the money pharma is going to lose on the price negotiations is going to cost us about 2 significantly effective drugs over the next 30 years. But they're arguing that we're going to kill them. We're going to kill them with the price of insulin being $35. That insulin is no better than the cheapest insulin for type 2 diabetics, but we can't even have that discussion.
Well, I love the fact that you're going around, and I respect you for pushing the envelope, questioning even some of your own, positions that you may have over the years as somebody that's a reputable doctor, beloved doctor where you're at, and coming out and saying, hey, here's what I think is going on. Here's what I think is wrong with the industry. I don't think enough people are doing what you're doing, and I applaud you for it, and I got a lot of respect for you doing that. We need more men and women like you in your space that are willing to do that because it's not easy. Because a part of it's kind of like, what are you doing, guys? This is our little shtick that we have. Don't do that. Don't expose us. Right. You're like, no, guys, I'm doing this for integrity. I'm at a phase of my life that I'm not doing this for money. I really want to find a way to impact the next generation, and I respect that. I think we need more people like that.
Thank you.
The book, Sickening. Link will be below. Rob, put it in the chat, in the description, in every place that you can have. How Big Pharma broke American healthcare and how we can repair it. I am all about studying this topic, especially from somebody who's qualified, questioning things, who's going to give you and I a different perspective. If you haven't yet ordered this copy, click on a link below, go order the copy of Sickening. Doc, appreciate you for coming in. Once again, really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. But for people like you, this information stays in a soundproof chamber.
We want to make sure the world is reading and investigating because they may see an angle that we're not even thinking about ourselves. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got betdavid? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
So you know what's tough to do? Think about this for a second here, folks. Imagine you trying to write one book. It's already hard to do, right? Then think about writing a book that becomes a New York Times bestseller. Okay. That's hard to do. Then think about writing a book bashing philosophy supported by the New York Times newspaper, and you still win the New York Times bestseller. Then imagine doing that 13 times, and your name is Ann Coulter, and you're invited to all these shows, and you have relationships with people who like you, hate you, love you, complicated. She's able to befriend people that don't agree with her philosophy. It's not an easy thing to do. She gets under people's skin within seconds if she chooses to. Just recently, we'll talk about this one here with a man you may recognize, Donald J. Trump. You guys had an exchange on Twitter and Truth Social. She is a conservative political commentator, author, legal analyst, a writer, columnist for New York Times. And, Coulter's first book, High Crimes and Misdemeanors, The Case Against Bill Clinton. She wrote a book called In Trump We Trust, slightly changed recently. She sold over 5 million copies, and her columns are read by millions and more. Ann Coulter, how are you?
Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. It's very good to have you here.
Also, you forgot my Substack. That's my newest thing.
Okay.
I got sick of the censorship on Twitter, so now you can read all my columns, see my podcasts, videos, all at anncoulter.substack.com.
Current? Are they still
Yes, yeah, thanks, Elon, yeah.
Oh, wow. So Elon hasn't done anything to help you?
No, and this kind of annoys me about, he's wrecked it in like 17 different ways. But one of them is he makes this big show of there's going to be no censorship, and then he brings back like Nazis. Gee, thanks. Good favor for us. But
what's
he doesn't
wrong with
stop.
Nazis?
Look, I believe in free speech, but he won't bring back, I'll just start in with the most outrageous things. But people like, Jared Taylor, he was raised in Japan, so he speaks. He's very gentlemanly, he's the opposite of a Nazi in that way, but he only writes about race. Oh, wow. That's the issue. And he writes about it honestly. It was reviewed, his book, I forget what it was, his red book, was reviewed in the National Review favorably when it came out years ago. But because he writes only about race, he's still banned from Twitter, and I am 100% still shadow banned. I've got more than two. Well, what happened was, and then I'll end it. I had 2.1 million followers, 2018 or 19. Mm-hmm. This is before Elon. Suddenly, overnight, I lost 200,000 followers. Oh. And from 7 years, I went from 0 to 2.1 million. From that moment on, I've never gotten another Twitter follower.
From 2.1 million.
No, they took me down by a couple hundred thousand.
So who else within the new Twitter that Elon's running? What else are you not happy with what he's doing? Since that's what you started off with.
Changing the name. That is the most moronic. You're the entrepreneur. It's like changing the name of Kleenex. What on earth? And we all still call it Twitter.
Yeah.
X is stupid. I always feel like I'm closing it down when I click on the X to get it to reload. It looks like the button shut the screen down.
Interesting.
But besides the fact that it's known worldwide, you wouldn't change the name of Google. You wouldn't change the name of Facebook. You complete moron. And the other biggest thing he did, which is utterly retarded, is he didn't understand what the blue check mark was. That was so, and I did it just this week, and I thought, oh, crap, is this really Matt Gaetz? Because I wanted to tweet something to Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
And so I started to put in at Matt Gaetz, and it used to be, well, there's a blue check mark. Yep, that's really Matt Gaetz. And I just thought, oh, screw it. I'm not even checking. Screw you, Elon. Because you don't know. You pay $10. The point of the blue check mark, I had to get my Twitter account. I'm really not shutting up. But
by the way, to be fair, what I liked about the blue check mark on what he did, he wanted to eliminate bots. That was his way of getting rid of bots and not wanting to rely on advertisers to get money, so he doesn't have to go get all the advertising money that, Twitter used to rely on.
Okay, we'll get back to the bots thing in one sentence. To get my Twitter account, they had to throw off a fake Ann Coulter. That's the purpose of the blue check mark. Am I responding to the real Chelsea Handler, the real Bob Dole, or is this a fraud? Now we don't know. And who cares about bots? And how does a bot get a blue check mark? Mm-hmm. Actually, that would be a good thing. A bot isn't going to get a blue check mark.
Are you ready to start your account on Truth Social? When does that start?
I've thought about what is it, Zuckerberg's thing, or
Threads. You don't even know the name, man. Yeah. That's how irrelevant it is.
Don't do it.
And the other one is that, what's that, semaphore or something? I don't know what it is. Yeah. But you see, this is the problem, and this is why I don't even care. You probably know about the major free speech case recently where they found the discovery was unbelievable, how the Biden administration was putting pressure on Twitter, Facebook, the rest of them to shut down, these brilliant virologists and epidemiologists, the Great Barrington Declaration guys, and wouldn't let them tell the truth about vaccines. And by the way, they're not anti-vaccine, about shutdowns, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really unbelievable how the Biden administration was directly saying, it wasn't like a subtle, a mafia thing. No, it was, what the F are you doing? Take this down right away, including a Jill Biden parody account they made them take down. I don't think you need the government pushing these private companies for this to be a First Amendment violation, because why am I not going to go to Semaphore or whatever that other thing is? Because this is the public square. Now it's a public utility. No, you shouldn't have the right to censor anyone.
You shouldn't have the right to censor anyone with Twitter. Okay, so go back to it. So you said the blue check mark, the bots. He says, who cares about the bots, right? Well, the bots were a big part of manipulating and propaganda because, there were companies you can hire that has 1 million bots to get a tweet, to get 100,000 tweets to create momentum, but it's fake and what makes it look like it's so much more interesting. So to eliminate that, where you're like, yeah, this is probably a bot versus no, this is an account because a person's paying for it. I guess what he could do.
Bots could pay for it.
Bots could pay for it, but not times 100,000 accounts. If you think about that,
and also, I don't think the blue check mark does anything about the bot. But I'll come back to whether I care about bots, which I really don't. But the blue check mark, if somebody doesn't already have 1 million followers, they shouldn't be getting a blue check mark. You have to be Bob Dole, Bill Maher. You have to be somebody we've heard of. That's the point.
So different colors. So maybe keep it different colors.
Yeah,
if you pay for it, you could do that, right? If you're paying for it, it's maybe yellow check mark, whatever. And I know they're doing right now nonprofit, whatever, government organization, and keep the blue check mark protected, so you know that is the account. Because it's true, because you can look at Ann Coulter parody account, right? Such and such parody account, and it almost looks real.
Like the AOC's
parody account went viral and blew up.
God.
So what have you been doing lately? Obviously, it's been a lot of changes that happened since you went on Bill Maher and you told Bill Maher that you were the first person that's like, who's going to win today? I think who was to your right?
She said
Joy. Who was?
Joy-Ann Reid.
Yeah,
MSNBC.
she was there. And then another fellow with a weird-looking shirt that was supporting Marco Rubio, and Gutierrez, who was supporting, I want to say he was talking about Jeb Bush, even though he's a Democrat himself. Yeah. And you said, this is the one. Can you just play this from the beginning?
You were the first, right?
Yeah, this can just play. This is how it starts. Watch this.
Okay, here we are. And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
Look at that. Look. You knew it. Look.
So of all the I told you so's, does this rank at the highest for you, or?
It's pretty good. I just remember thinking at the time and days afterwards, liberals always think that derisive laughter, we proved you wrong. Yeah. And I was thinking, well, we don't know what's happened yet.
Yeah, you saw that Joy Reid, who's one of the talking heads on MSNBC, probably the most liberal of all the liberals on MSNBC, literally lost her mind. She couldn't even think for a second.
Well, she looked at it like she was nuts, like you were crazy.
And Bill Maher, you've seen him, sort of stay centered, if you want to kind of call
You'll
it
notice
that.
he doesn't laugh. He knows me.
Yeah, he knows. Exactly. But
Well, you just laugh and you don't wait for facts when you don't care about facts anyway.
Right.
Well, one of the things I respect about Bill Maher is he's famously said, it's okay for you to hate Trump. You can't hate the people that have voted for Trump.
Oh, good for him. Okay. I agree with that.
Where do you stand on that?
Well, I'm starting to hate him now.
Trump or Bill Maher?
The people that still support him. Well, it's funny because I used to say, I didn't know he had said that, but I used to say that when Trump was president and not building the wall, not deporting illegal aliens, and doing, it was the presidency of Jared Kushner and Paul Ryan. He governed exactly like Jeb Bush. I still would write In Trump We Trust because he was the first candidate saying the things I wanted a candidate to say. And I've given it to Republicans saying this was the greatest campaign in United States history. Do what's in this book. It's a great book because it describes, sorry, I guess I shouldn't say that, but it describes what was so great about Trump, not listening to the political consultants, not giving us the stupid cliches, not bringing his wife up on stage, not talking about Reagan. It was, I will build a wall. He was the only one who directly went to policy. Trade, wall, no more stupid wars. That's what I've been waiting to vote for my entire life. Now, if he had come out at 2 a.m., the night he won, and Hillary people are all crying. That was so great. I sometimes just watch that over again.
That's
and
like
he
your
had
political
said,
porn.
woohoo, we won, and then had a heart attack and died. That would have been the best thing that could have happened to this country. Because he had proved he had done everything good he was ever going to do with that campaign. And Pence would have been afraid to betray his supporters. No, Trump, oh, no, I'm not going to build the wall. We'll move the embassy, though. You guys should be happy with that.
So, speaking of Bill Maher.
So you write this book, In Trump We Trust, right? So you start off, you go on Bill Maher. You say Trump's going to win. Everybody loses their minds. There's a book you wrote that...
I was introducing him at rallies before.
Yeah. Oh, you were everywhere. He
was banned. He was banned from... No, he wasn't banned from Fox. I was banned from Fox for supporting Trump. But sometimes they'd be forced to put me on when they were covering a Trump rally because I'd be speaking before him. That's how much I was for him.
Yeah, and then you even write this book, In Trump We Trust, right? So, okay, so you're fully on the camp. This is August 2023, which is what, 3 months before, 10 weeks before election time that's coming up. And then he wins, and then you're right, and everybody says, she knew something we didn't know. Then, slowly but surely, you're not happy with what he's doing. The comment you just made right now, the best thing could have been he would have had a heart attack, and that was it because that was the highest milestone. He didn't build a wall. He did, Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He didn't, how about us? How about us? How about us? At what point did you start turning and saying, wait a minute, what happened to all the promises you made? 10% tariff, Mexico, $20 billion, you could have gotten that money, et cetera. At what point did you say, wait a minute, what is going on here?
Before he was sworn in, I was getting nervous. We all were, but still, you want to be constructive, and so I was gentle. I famously, though I told no one, I'm a vault. I can talk to politicians, and they never have to worry about. I won't even tell my friends because this has to be, private. And I used to talk to him a lot. During the campaign, he hung on my every word. I could text something to Corey, it'd be coming out of his mouth 30 seconds later. But I showed up in Washington. In fact, I had lunch with Michael Isikoff, that very good, but liberal reporter, Washington Post and Newsweek. And I went straight from lunch to the White House, and I never sat down. I just stood right at the edge of the Resolute desk and yelled at him for 15 minutes, saying exactly what you just said. You are not doing what you promised. You got elected on the wall. You're doing nothing on the wall. You're doing nothing on anchor babies. You're doing nothing on trade with Mexico. Remember, it took him like 2 years to do that, even to end that. And I didn't start using the F word first. But once it started, they heard it through. I mean, I don't know how the press found out, I don't know, like a month later, and it was published. And I thought, it actually could have been anyone in the West Wing because we were yelling at one another so much.
Oh, wow.
This is how much after? How long?
I think it was February.
Oh, shoot.
Or March.
So like immediate, 17?
Yeah.
So it did, okay. So now when he's putting his team together, were you and him directly talking, or was it mainly through Corey during the election?
No, after he was elected, Actually, every once in a while, I'd speak to him directly during the campaign. But when he was, standing up giving a speech, that was when I tell him, you're in New Hampshire, talk about immigration. They're opioids, huge issue. And then he'd be saying it. And by the way, I don't think I've ever told anyone that before, but screw him.
Wow.
I'll tell the truth now. And then I talked to him a fair bit on the phone, basically for the first year in office. And the way he tries to win you over, I met with him immediately after the speech where he was bragging about the size of his hands. And I said to him, I happened to be in Florida. I drove to Mar-a-Lago. I was waiting for him. It's him, Corey, Hope come in. And they're eating dinner.
Hicks.
And I said, look, I'm the only person losing money trying to put you in the White House. You're going to listen to me. No more bragging about the size of your penis at debates. And what he does is he tries to win you over by, charming you and giving you you're losing money here. I'm going to give you something worth $200,000, a membership to Mar-a-Lago. As if I'd ever set foot unless I am yelling at the president or president-to-be.
Well, in that case, it might come in handy.
Yeah.
Right. Could have.
Get right through the front door, no waiting.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So that was quick. So okay, so you're saying the last time you and him actually had a phone call was when? Was it in 2017?
No. We kept talking. Then he called me and bragged about how even the liberal media. Remember when he bombed Syria and it turned out it wasn't chemical weapons? Oh, man, what happened to no more wars? So, Ivanka cried, kids died. So he starts bombing Syria. And remember, the liberal media loved it. Oh, they love when we bomb foreign countries. And he called me and told me how, can you see all the great press I'm getting? And I said, this isn't what you won on, sir. This isn't, it was supposed to be the wall. It was supposed to be our country. Why are you getting us more involved in the Middle East now? And throughout that time, when he was picking his team, he'd try to, win me over because I didn't like some of his picks. They weren't consistent with what he ran on. And I was pretty gentle about it. But he'd always offer me something. Well, I could do something. Oh, you're not on Fox? Rupert calls me 4 times a day. And I distinctly remember I said to him, I don't care about Fox. I don't care about my career. Just hire Chris Kobach for Homeland Security. That's all I want you to do.
And he didn't.
And by the way, the wall would have gotten built and we would be done with anchor babies and dreamers and the rest of it if he had hired Chris Kobach.
So, Ann, this is your world. You've been in it for a while. You've been relevant for a long time with issues you talk about. When it comes on to picking your team, okay, when you become a president, it's different if you're in the world, right? So, for example, if your name is Bush, Stephen Schmidt was here last week, and he said a very interesting thing about the fact that when he sat down in a meeting with President Bush and Karl Rove and all those guys are there, and President asked him and says, who's the best political strategist in this room? And Stephen looks at the president and says, hey, President, I would say Karl Rove. He says, wrong, it's me. He says, my entire family, I've been in politics, I've been this, my dad, grandpapa. So he made a point to say, I know what's going on. He says, I don't think John Kerry's going to win. It's because he's an asshole. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to be thinking about all these things he's saying, right? It's okay. So Bush puts a team together, but he's been in that world. So he kind of knows who to hire, right? If your name is Obama, maybe you don't know everybody because you're only a one-term senator. So the best comparison I can make to Trump would be an Obama because, again, you're not in it, right? Everybody else prior to him, director of CIA senior, Ronald Reagan, 2-time governor, you can kind of go to. If he gets reelected, okay, because he's right now ahead by 40, 50, 60 points.
It will never happen.
So you're saying it'll never happen. Okay. But go back to it when he did. What should he have done with his team, okay, in an ideal situation?
Right.
Should it be, let me bring somebody from the, mainstream side to see what you think about it. Let me bring some people from the political side. But who do you trust when you're in a position like that you've never been in that environment?
Right. Well, first of all, I want to say those words have never been used in combination before. Stephen Schmidt said an interesting thing. You've made a very good argument for, and I've heard people make variations of it, and you do it very well, better than I've heard before, that, well, he doesn't know, this isn't his world, he's in real estate. But no, I'm sorry, he knew who to trust when he was campaigning. He knew if I listen to these people, I'm going to be popular. I'm going to get cheers here. I'm going to get votes. Besides me, Jessica Vaughn, basically anything Breitbart said. Chris Kobach is the one who was advising him on how you get Mexico to pay for it. You tax remittances. Oh, that was another thing that I yelled at him in the Oval Office about. It's very easy to get Mexico to pay for the wall. Maybe he didn't understand it. Hire Chris Kobach. So, for 16 months during the campaign, he knows if I listen to these 50, 100 people, I'm going to be huge. I'm going to be so popular. Now I'm president. I know I'll hire my son-in-law, a liberal Democrat from New York.
And can I ask one question though? So, and because one of my big issues.
Benny, before we do
I'm sorry.
that, I want to get into this a little bit deeper, but let me first go to our sponsor because I have to do my job, right? Or else I don't have a job. And they would
I'm
fire
sorry.
me. So today's sponsor is American Hartford Gold. If you've heard what I've talked about over the years, I've always had physical gold. Since day one. I've been in the financial industry since the day before 9/11, Series 7, all these things that I've done, but I've always been a fan of having physical gold. Not a big percentage, but a small percentage. And in 2022, when you look at data, central banks globally bought a record 1,136 tons of gold. When they do that, you got to pay attention. According to Bank of International Settlement, over 90% of central banks are working on a CBDC. American Hartford Gold can ship physical gold or silver directly to your door. And they can also set up a gold IRA. If you have retirement funds, you can roll over your money into it. They'll show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio with physical gold and silver. American Hartford Gold has a five-star rating from thousands of reviews and an A+ from Better Business Bureau. Tell them I sent you, and they'll give you up to $5,000 of free silver on your first order. Click on a link below or call 866-939-6984. Again, 866-939-6984 or text PBD to 65532. Go ahead, Vinny.
And with the border, which is one of our big things, and you can see, what's happening right now. It's blatantly obvious what the left is doing. How hard was it that he made those promises, but the left from the beginning was doing, a coordination with the media? Racist, you're racist, Mexico, this, that. How hard was it for him to make that promise? And I think he actually did believe in it. But how hard did the left make it for him to keep that? Because everything was about race, and how much did that affect them?
Well, I write about that in Trump We Trust. I think it actually helped Trump. What you want to do, and I think DeSantis is doing this a little bit. There are some other things he could do it on. What you want to do is take an issue that's like 80% popular with voters, but 90% unpopular with the media. That's immigration. I've never seen an issue like this where the public is way on one side and all of the elites, politicians and the media on the other side. So he takes the position and then the media end up amplifying it for him. Mm-hmm. He looks brave when in fact he's like pandering by coming out for the wall. It actually really, really helped him to be called a racist. I mean, that Mexican rapist thing, I didn't actually support him when I said that on Bill Maher because I thought he was going to back down. He always struck me as, kind of a chowderhead O'Reilly type and whichever way the elites want me to go. And amazingly, 2 weeks later, he didn't back down. And I thought, well, okay, he may be an utter vulgarian, but this is what I've been waiting to vote for. Mm-hmm. And he never backed down. And I think the media hating him for that and calling him a racist for that just made his supporters, it was like tensile steel. Mm-hmm.
And we started off the segment talking about your viral clip on Bill Maher. I'll give you the utmost credit. You nailed it. Boom. You were on Bill Maher recently again. This is within the last couple of years. That first clip was obviously in 2015. He said, look, you voted for him. You convinced. You called it. You called your shot, Babe Ruth style. He said, obviously, jokingly, but now you're finding out, it turns out he's just some big fat lying con man, right? What was your first clue? So break that down. What was your first clue that he actually, in your words, lied to you in the American public?
Well, in my defense, I always knew that was a possibility. I grew up in Connecticut, so I've been watching this guy Trump since I was a kid, and he is an utter Aravist, vulgarian, really wants just every bad adjective you can imagine. So that was possible, but again, he was the only one saying the right things. You know what? The mayor of New York right now, Mayor Eric Adams, he is basically the same thing. Who else would you vote for? He was talking about crime. At least he talked about it when he was running. You have to vote for him. You have to. Is he doing anything about it? No. Nope. No. I mean, I think in his case, it's more incompetence. It was basically once it was clear Trump got the nomination, he very quickly started moving away from, as I said, all the people who advised him to help him get the nomination to Jared's put in charge of everything.
So okay, let's go back to the team of putting the team together. Who were you fully against? Who was okay? Who was a good hire? Of the people he chose. And by the way, that could include the VP, because I know the VP was who? Oh. It was supposed to be Gingrich. It was Christie. It was Christie, Gingrich, himself, and one other, right? That were possibilities of being the VP. Who did he do where you're like, what are you doing? And who did he do where you're like, okay, that's a good hire?
It was mostly, I'm trying to think right now, it was mostly lower level people. I don't think there's, I guess, but it's not my field. For Wilbur Ross, I think he was probably a good hire.
Wilbur Ross was 98 years old.
I know, but it's not in my area, so I shouldn't even talk about that. I think he may have been.
So are half the senators, by the way.
That's true.
Just Betsy DeVos was great. It turned out she was very good, and I think that's about it for the cabinet. Oh, and I liked Jeff Sessions, but who was the one lonely voice in the woods saying, "Don't make him attorney general"?
And are you tough to please?
No, it would have been so easy. It would be so easy. For one thing, I'd keep Sessions in the Senate. But if you're going to put him someplace, in Homeland. And then have Kobach, if he's not head of Homeland, put him in charge of immigration. But I don't know. I'd keep Sessions in the Senate. And the argument that was made to me was, he's always wanted to be attorney general. And I love Jeff Sessions, but I said, this isn't like Make-A-Wish Foundation. You're president now. This is really important. But no, and I don't think Sessions did anything wrong. It was horrible how Trump humiliated him. But I wouldn't have put him there. I would have kept him in the Senate. And look, Trump ended up losing a Senate seat for us.
But are you tough to please? And what I mean by tough to please is, okay, so for example, what president in the last, however many years, who has done a job where you're like, okay, this guy came through and did his part? Like, who has been someone where you've said, that's my guy, I'm sticking with him, he did great, he came through, he kept his word, da-da-da-da-da. Who was the person that...
Well, I'm with Reagan on the point. Sorry, I'm not one of these nut Republicans who can only cite Reagan. Drives me crazy. But I think he was the one who said, with politicians, if they're 80% with me and 20% against me, that's enough. That's enough. That's fine for me. And so I'd say that's true with a lot of them. I think you have to be I think it's hard to be a normal person and run for president. You have to be a little bit of a narcissist or something. But I'd say more than 80% satisfied with Governor DeSantis.
You're 80% satisfied?
More than.
Okay, with
There's
what?
very little I would criticize about DeSantis. I mean, the COVID response, we're down to him and the president of Sweden. I had him on my podcast right before the first debate. And I said, I considered it like debate prep. And I said, okay, now you're absolutely the best, head and shoulders. No one can compare to you on immigration, crime, and COVID response. So we're going to do a little test on this. No matter what I ask you, you start to answer and then turn it right back around to immigration, crime, or your COVID response. And on COVID, I said, look, nobody compares to you when you were taking all the slings and the arrows. So unless the president of Sweden is running in next year's presidential election, you are way ahead of the rest of them on that.
This is with DeSantis. Mm-hmm. So how do you think he's doing today?
I wish he had read In Trump We Trust. I gave him a copy. I said, but you have to actually do it.
You think he read it?
I don't know. I think I still don't think Trump is going to be the nominee, though I wouldn't put money on it. I've put many stake bets on it. That may be a mistake. I have a feeling I'm jinxing myself. You don't think Trump's going to
be the nominee?
And
in what way?
Yeah.
Well, I wrote about this. It's on my Substack. It was about 2 months ago because I remembered this. I looked back and saw who was leading, who was the polls for the Republicans nominee for like 20 years. It was never the guy who turned out to be the nominee. A year before the election, it's always name recognition. So, we can go visit the Rudy Giuliani Presidential Museum after this, or the Newt Gingrich Presidential Museum, or the Fred Thompson Presidential Museum.
Or the Huckabee.
Liddy Dole. Liddy Dole was neck and neck with Bush. Liddy Dole. Why? Because she was the wife of the guy who had just run for president. It's all name recognition. We've never had somebody with so much name recognition as Donald Trump? But name another human on the face of the earth who's that recognizable and everybody knows that name. And DeSantis, I think, put it well, but very briefly. What he said is presidential elections aren't decided by polls, they're decided by voters. And look, you can have me back and laugh at me because I could be totally wrong, and I'm a little nervous.
You want to put another...
You're 1 for 1, and so I want to hear this because I want to bet.
I don't feel as confident as I did
Real
in
quick,
that.
Ann,
You
want
don't
to put
feel as confident with DeSantis as you did with Trump.
No, it's not DeSantis. No, I don't feel as much confidence saying Trump won't be the nominee.
Oh, I
because
got
am
You want
worried.
to put a steak dinner on it?
I already have too many. Or I would.
And
I'm going to
$50?
bankrupt myself.
And is your reason for saying that he won't, is it because of everything that they're doing right now, legally, illegally, in my mind, to completely destroy him? Because if you think about it, mentally, politically, financially, it's an all-out assault. It's completely, like, if you don't see it, I'm saying as the public, you're dumb. Is that your reason for saying it? Or
Exactly the opposite. The Democrats know exactly what they're doing, and I wrote about this the day of the, again, on anncoulter.substack.com, the day of after the Alvin Bragg absurd indictment in New York. Trump was dead in the water before that. Nobody showed up at his announcement speech. Fox cut away from it. It was a bore. He was collapsing in the polls. But the smart Democrats, I mean, okay, I'll admit, on MSNBC, they genuinely hate him.
Yeah, big time.
But that dovetails with the smart Democrats like David Axelrod sitting back and saying, okay, here's our re-election plan for Joe Biden. Trick Republicans into nominating Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And man, did Republicans fall for it. Yep. Oh, they're easy to roll. And they keep doing this because every time they do it, I mean, this was the theme of my last book, Resistance is Futile. I kept finding myself at cocktail parties arguing with New York Times reporters, telling them, drop the Russia stuff. It's stupid. This is what you should be attacking him for. There's loads to attack him for. Why are you doing things that you force me to defend him? And that's what they do. They force people like me, and I don't want to defend the man, to defend him by these utterly preposterous indictments. The only one that's at all legit, and it's legit, but should he go to prison for it, is the Florida Mar-a-Lago one. If somebody, and little word to the wise, if you get a subpoena from a DA's office or federal prosecutor's office, you have to comply.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So what are you thinking? What are you thinking here? What you just said?
Okay, well, here's my thing. Well, with that, I'm thinking it's all BS, and I think you nailed it actually. And so the left doesn't let a crisis ever go to waste.
Yes,
you know that, right? So for instance, with COVID, and they're brilliant. Say what you want about the left. They are geniuses because they do capitalize. 70% of voters didn't vote on election day. The last election, you know that, right? I'm sorry, they didn't vote on election day. It used to be the absentee ballots. It used to be 30% to 70% because of COVID. Everybody's staying home. It was 70 to 30. Okay, it was a coordinated effort. Zuckerberg donated $420 million. They had Antifa on the streets. They were, suppressing the vote, like you mentioned earlier too. Twitter had how many FBI agents there? They had $3.5 million FBI gave to stay there, censor all the stories, all the Biden stuff. So my question to you is, and people thought that they cheated, and what are you concerned that they're going to manufacture another crisis to keep, to do that same thing, or are the pieces of the game already set up for them to win?
If it's Trump, it's easy street for the Democrats. I mean, also you have to remember they do control the media.
Of course.
And whenever Republicans have some great idea or conservatives are pushing on me, and I say why it won't work, and they say, yeah, but that's not fair because that's not how the media treated Democrats. And I say, as with January 6th, but the media is being unfair to us. If you are so stupid not to know that the media is far left and you're not going to get any help from them, you shouldn't be running into the Capitol. You are too dumb to even remember to go to the bathroom. So they can mostly sit back on easy street if their whole reelection plan for Biden is trick Republicans into renominating Trump. If it's not Trump,
okay,
And if Biden has to debate with Ron DeSantis,
It's over.
what they're going to do is, my suspicion is, they'll pretend we've got a new variant.
And mind you, they tried testing it, and we were just tired of it. But I just have a feeling. Do you genuinely think that's going to be Biden? Biden's going to make it to the actual. He's going to be the guy.
I don't know.
Who else would you? Do you think? Because Newsom, I'm not running. I'm kind of running. He's debating DeSantis. We're still baffled. Who do you think? If it's not going to be Biden, who do you think is going to be that slippery snake that just comes in?
And by the way, this may be one way the Democrats, although they're conning Republicans, trying to get them to renominate Trump, they could also be conning too many of themselves that they think, oh yeah, it's definitely going to be Trump. We don't have to worry about anything. We'll do Weekend at Bernie's. This will be fine. If it turns out that when voters go to vote, they do not vote for Trump, then they really are going to be in so much trouble. But I think they have to, I don't know that much about like election law, but I think they have to decide pretty fast, because there are state laws, I believe, that prevent you from being on the ballot if you're not nominated in time. And I think they have like another month to make a decision.
So you think they're doing all of this stuff to give Trump momentum and help him out to be the nominee and beat DeSantis?
I think the smart ones are. The dumb ones just hate Trump. And that's basically the entire MSNBC staff. So
you're saying they are scared that DeSantis is going to come and beat Biden. That's what they fear.
I think almost.
DeSantis is having a hard time beating Nikki Haley. DeSantis is getting, first one he had a hard time with Vivek. He's getting other people that are coming up. Because, and by the way, again, I'd love to hear that part. The follow-up would be, you got the most popular president of all time, okay? Not, Joe Biden, Tony Robbins status type of motivational speaker, but the most popular president of all time that we have, 81 million votes, whatever the number is, right? Okay. Trump on the other side, the most fanatical supporters Republicans have had in how long? Maybe since Reagan. Fanatical. I don't think George Bush had fanatical. I don't think Senior had fanatical.
That doesn't get you more votes.
Okay, but it's fanatical. That comes down to the middle, which is the independent libertarians. It's really 4 or 5 different. Yeah. So
Republicans.
To win yours. Okay, fair. So, but when it comes down to it, you're saying a DeSantis who has a hard time with the stage. When you watch him, he's not necessarily one that's winning it. If you look at this right here, this is not us showing it. This is, the poll showing from how close he was to Trump and how separated it gets more and more and more. Right. And you see Haley is not coming up to the point where somebody called him a bird brain. Haley. Who called Haley a bird brain? Somebody you may recognize, your friend, called him a bird brain. Maybe that's because she's a threat now, that she's coming up. She's getting too much attention.
Hated her.
You've always hated her.
Yeah.
So you actually agree that she is a bird brain?
Hey, were you the one that sent her the bird cage and the food? Somebody sent her. They said Donald Trump's can't send her a bird.
So you think DeSantis stands a shot at beating Biden?
Yeah, yes, I'm worried for the reasons you say. Okay, he's not a showman on the debate stage, and this could be, wishful thinking. But one thing I've noticed about presidents is we tend to go back and forth. It's like me going back and forth on boyfriends. The smart, ugly one and the good-looking, stupid one. And you just keep going back and forth and back and forth. And
who won? Who's won so far? It's actually a very good case study.
Well, what you ought to do is have like 2 at the same time. I'll talk to you, make
now
out
you're
with
talking
you.
about
Yes, and let's go.
Saucecast.
And
throughout the day, I talk to Bob, but I'm not. Jose.
The workout friend tennis pro.
And the voters similarly seem to go back and forth between highly articulate presidents and marbles in their mouth presidents. So Reagan, unbelievably articulate. It drove Democrats crazy. And Hollywood. Okay, then we get marbles in his mouth, George Bush 1. Then we get Mr. Smooth, Bill Clinton, and it melts in your mouth.
Literally.
It's really sexy when you say that.
And then we go from there, from another marbles in your mouth Bush to oh my gosh, the most articulate president we've probably ever had, Barack Obama, to Trump, who has a vocabulary of about 50 words.
What do you mean? He has the best words.
China.
Disaster.
He knows the best words.
And they're the strongest.
And what
Very
would you say to
strong.
the people?
Strongest words.
Since you're speaking of your love life and multiple guys, that you sound almost like
was
a
a
scorned
metaphor.
lover. You sound like you're someone that was in love. You guys are fighting and literally cursing each other out in the White House. You guys have this text message relationship. You guys are so close. You literally
I'd say it's
nailed
very
his election.
sexist.
Very sexist.
Very sexist. It reminds me of that. I don't know if you've seen this, the Seinfeld episode where Elaine is going crazy because every time she's angry at a woman, cat fight, cat fight, cat fight. And not smart people who want to attack me always do. I mean, look, I don't know if you guys were paying attention to politics then, but when Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, took on the teachers' unions, oh my gosh, that was the most beautiful thing to behold. And the public sector...
Many viral clips with him on that.
And the public sector unions are a huge problem for this country and for state after state after state. So I was a huge Chris Christie fan. Oh, and by the way, met with him too, privately, and harangued him for 2 hours about immigration is the most important issue. But no, he decides he's going to listen to the Wall Street Journal and collapses. So then I didn't like him. But when I was supporting Chris Christie, because you got to admit, even when you hate what he's saying, he is funny, he is articulate, he is everything you're saying DeSantis isn't. He's a little awkward on stage, which I think is fine. I think people will get over that and just look at his record. At least that's what I'm hoping.
You don't sound convinced, though. You're not convinced.
Well,
you're hoping. You're not.
Well, it's a long time in advance. I generally don't like to make predictions. They made me on politically incorrect.
Real time.
Sorry, real time.
They're still politically incorrect, but still.
So let's go to the exchange you guys had a month ago. Can you pull this up, Rob? Let's just show the exchange you guys had a month ago. So,
It wasn't exactly
so if you wanna go to truth first, yeah. So Ann Coulter, the washed-up political pundit who predicted my win in 2016, then went unbearably crazy with her demands and wanting to be part of everything, to the Constitution of all, has gone hostile and angry with every bit of her very nervous energy. Like many others, I just don't want her around. She wasn't worth the trouble. And part two, he says, page 2, he says, has Ann Coulter, has been Ann Coulter, is a stone cold loser. And then you respond, if you want to zoom in here, Trump begged me to go to Bedminster this week. I said only if I could record a Substack with him. But the gigantic pussycat is too afraid of me, so instead he did this.
Pat, there was no cat in there. And it's all in capital letters, all in caps.
Leave the cats alone.
So what happened here? What happened here with the small little public feud you guys had?
A friend of mine who owns a restaurant in New York where a lot of journalists go went out. It was written up in a newspaper, and he had the newspaper on the wall, and I happened to be at the restaurant that night, so I was in the article, so we got everybody in the article to sign this blown-up article. So he wanted to get, and among the people who go there are Trumps, none of the one names you know, but still in the neighborhood. And so he wanted to get Trump to sign it. So he goes with Trump's sister out to Bedminster. And Trump is signing it, and he sees my name there, and my friend calls me. I'm out in the Hamptons, and he's desperately calling me. I have to talk to you. I can't put this in a text. I got to call. Okay. He said, you know her? You know her? You got to get her out to Bedminster. And he said, he circled around to me 3 different times. He said, you got to get her to Bedminster. You got to get her to Bedminster. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to hurt the restaurateur's feelings, but there's no effing way I'm going to Bedminster. And then as soon as I hung, I said, I'll think about it, but probably not. And then I hang up and think, oh my gosh, I have a Substack. And so I text him back and say, no, I won't go to Bedminster, but I want him to do a Substack video with me, which I do all the time, about once a week. And I have big, important people on, not as big as you, but pretty big. And I know he's not going to do it. So first he comes back and says, oh, he doesn't do Zoom. And then I'm saying, okay, I'll come out there. And I'm talking to all my techie friends saying, I need every one of you wearing a GoPro. Because I'm going to go out there and he's going to say, no, I won't be interviewed. He wouldn't do it on camera. I knew he wouldn't. So all I get back is, oh, Yes, maybe we'll set it up. You know, people are going back to Florida now. This was a month ago. Nobody's back in Florida in August. He's not going back to Florida. So some of my journalist friends said, so is this happening? Is this happening? Are you going? And before this even happened, I texted the exact same thing to him, and I said, it's not happening. He's a gigantic pussy. He's too scared of me. He won't do it. And then, you know, I'm just going about my day a few days later, and I start getting all these emails. Why is Trump attacking you out of the blue on Truth Social? Well, this is his chicken way of saying no.
So how much after the exchange did this attack on Truth come out?
Oh, it happened like 2 days after they were giving me BS excuses about when we're going to do the Substack.
So why do you
interview.
think he wanted to meet with you in Bedminster? What do you think his outcome was or motive was?
Take a picture with me
To
and put it up on Truth Social and say, look who's supporting me again.
Oh, wow.
But he wouldn't do that.
Oh,
though.
he totally would.
You know why I don't think he would do that? You know why I don't think he would do that? Because within seconds you would deny it.
Okay, but I explained what happened with that attack. So he doesn't care.
No, but it would be a very bad look for him to do that. For example, Little Bow Wow posts a picture like 6 years ago. I don't know if you know this guy. He's a big time. He was a big rapper 20 years ago. Yeah, about
Bow Wow.
Oh, him. Yeah.
So he posts a picture that, hey, jet flying, stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
And then a guy
Flying
responds back and says, he's not jet flying. He was on a commercial airplane. What was this all about? It was the most embarrassing thing. I don't know if you remember this or not when this took place. Okay. So for Trump to post a picture of you to say who's supporting me, within seconds you would trash that. I don't know if
He
you would.
has a much bigger megaphone.
No, I don't.
He's
I
the
don't.
ex-president.
No, but are you kidding me? Mainstream media hates him. You would be center stage story, invited to every single CNN, MSNBC to trash him. You would get that I don't think that would be.
They will only invite people on. I mean, isn't that curious that they haven't invited me on to trash him? Why? Because I trash him for not keeping his promises. This is how much they want open borders and they want to destroy this country. If you attack him from the right, as I'm doing, oh no, it's your kryptonite to the networks. Only if you come on and say, we almost lost our democracy.
So your biggest issue with Trump essentially is he's not Trumpy enough.
He didn't keep his promises.
You nailed the nail on the head. You're not attacking him from the left. Everyone else is. You're attacking him from the right. And your biggest critique of him is straight up the open borders, immigration, not building the wall policy, right?
Yes.
And you live in, you're as conservative and as right-leaning as you are, you spend your time with the East Coast elite. You're in LA, San Francisco, what have you, and you're in New York. Here's my question. New York, we see what's going on with Eric Adams. We've seen what the governor, Kathy Holcomb, is saying. When are New Yorkers going to wake up and realize, all right, maybe this sanctuary city thing ain't what the cat pajamas is all about? What do you say?
They're waking up, and God bless Governor DeSantis. He started it. He said it first, and then that Martha's Vineyard thing is what set it off. And I mean, Abbott has more illegal aliens. It's an open border. This is why we need a wall. And I think more and more Americans are seeing this is the problem with not having a wall. And I just want to point out, anyone who talks about border security and does not say we need a wall is a liar. Nothing will work but a wall. And by the way, I don't know if you saw today, Joe Biden is saying he's going to start building a wall and blow off environmental regulations, proving my point.
That would be the Biden.
Nothing works but a wall. And the only one who I think is trustworthy enough, I mean, Vivek.
I was just going to ask you that.
I love Vivek. I hate to say this. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. His best ideas are all coming from DeSantis. But, oh, my gosh, that kid is articulate. So the only one I really trust to build a wall is DeSantis.
So not Trump. So of all the people, you're saying that Trump wouldn't be the most likely person to
He
build
had
the
4
frickin' wall?
years.
Yeah,
He
but
had a Republican House and a Senate. No, he does not give two shits
and
about
I'm
the
about
wall.
to defend Trump right now.
Oh, my
Don't
God,
you
here we
think
go.
he actually wanted to build the wall?
No, he was.
Why would he lie about the wall?
Didn't they start
Because it
building?
got him the presidency.
So you don't think he actually genuinely in his bones wants to build the wall? Genuinely?
I don't know, something that you easily could have done at any any point I'll even give you year 2 or 3 and 4. And by the way, he didn't need Congress. But if you have it in your head that you need Congress, you have a Republican House and a Republican Senate. And what did he do? He passed Paul Ryan's tax cuts.
Well, he wanted to go to the health care first.
And then what do you say to like somebody?
Yeah, he did a lot on healthcare, didn't he?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
obviously didn't.
And what do you say about because Vivek's attitude? He was interviewed. He just stopped somebody. He was doing grassroots, going to like coffee shops, and somebody's like, "How are you going to fix the border?" And he said, "I would deploy our military and literally put them at the southern border." Are you?
DeSantis said that first, and he said it better. And I wish I could just make him our president.
He wears high heel boots.
You can't give him Riz though, Ann. You know what
I
Riz
think
is?
he may not need it.
Well, really?
How do you not need charisma and personality and Riz to be the president?
George,
other than Joe Biden.
H.W. Bush, George W.
Yeah,
Bush.
but that's
a different era, he's
social
saying.
media,
Yeah.
and you know how this works these days.
No.
It's showmanship. It's entertainment. Politics pre-2000 wasn't showmanship. How
I don't
it
know.
is
Maybe
today.
you're right. Like
social
I
media.
say,
I'm right on this one. Ann.
I might be losing a lot of stake bets, but I just think that before people vote, what they do is they look at the candidates. There's generally, I'm trying to remember, do they have a debate in every state, at least the early states, before each primary or caucus? They definitely have one in Iowa. They will have one in New Hampshire. They will have one in South Carolina. And I mean, I always find it weird how many people there are who don't care about politics at all. They know as much about politics as I know about football. That's 0. But before they're going to vote, they know a presidential election is important. They're civic minded. They're just, I don't know, they have lives. And before that primary comes, they look up the candidates. And that's why we didn't have President Fred Thompson.
Yeah.
And as for Haley, there was one thing I was going to say about why I think she's going up in the polls. There was one thing that I will admit so far I've been wrong about, because every 4 years, my entire life, at some point during the Republican presidential nomination process or primary process, the black Republican is polling at number 1 or number 2, and I mean, many of them I've actually genuinely liked, like Herman Cain and his 999. I liked Alan Keyes, lots of them. But it's just so pathetic that Republicans are so desperate not to be called racist. Oh, I like Colin Powell for president. Oh, good for you. And so I predicted that at some point, Tim Scott. Yes, there it is.
Tim Scott would be polling first or second.
At some point, first or second. So far, I've been wrong, but now I think Haley's taking the place. No, I'm for a woman. You can't call me sexist.
Yeah.
Because I think she's been an absolute disaster in the debates.
So are you saying it's all just optics, or they're actually Steve Schmidt, your old buddy who was McCain's campaign manager, actually was like, oh, I didn't realize how racist the Republican Party really was.
Yeah.
So what are you exactly saying about the black nominees and the racism?
Oh, what I'm saying,
Republican Party.
No, nobody's racist. Nobody. Well, actually, there's a lot of anti-white racism. The number of white people who are racist, we couldn't fill up this room. So no, but Republicans are so. I mean, your average Republican, obviously I'm not, are so afraid of the mainstream media calling them racist. No, let's prove them wrong. Let's prove them wrong. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. White people have a suicidal gene.
White guilt is what it's called. It's
White
You
guilt.
brought something up, and there's something to be said. The national polls are national polls. And then we go to New Hampshire. And then we go
Right.
to Iowa. And people still don't understand, even though it's been explained at length, that Iowa's not an election. It's an elimination caucus.
Right.
It goes like this, like this, like this, like this. And so all the national polls do this because they have to sell ads and have something to say. All the people on TV that, don't make jobs, they make noise. So you've got the national polls saying, oh, what about this? What about this? That's why Fred Thompson was up after he goes on Johnny Carson and he talks about that. I remember that. And that's why, Mike Huckabee, Huckaboom, the headline was on Drudge, in the early days of Drudge, when everybody was like, is this really a newspaper? What's going on? How is he influencing us? And then you go down to the micro polls. So the question is, within these micro polls, they always surprise everybody. So do you think, and I'm kind of circling back, that in New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina, the first 3 that matters, because then a bunch of PAC money follows you, almost like the vortex, right? that they're going to find a way basically to keep Trump off the ballot. Because that's the only way he loses those primaries in what, 110 days?
Oh, I don't think so.
Do you think that he can lose on the ballot and lose?
Yes.
Wow, that's surprising because you look at the.
I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm not confident, but I think it can happen.
How?
I just think people start paying attention, and I think the real Trump cultists, the ones who say we don't care what he does. We don't care. We don't care if he doesn't build a wall. We don't care if he gives amnesty to dreamers. I think the number of Republicans who think that is not that big. I think there is that cult, and that you think that that's 40% of Republicans. I'm thinking it's more like 10%, and they'll come along.
Who don't care?
Who don't care about any of the issues. It's a cult of personality, and you
Only
see them on
10%?
Twitter. Of Republicans.
Right. Of Republicans.
Because it's, I don't know, maybe Republicans are dumber than I thought.
Well, the math is sort of proving you wrong. I mean, if you look at his approval ratings within the Republican Party, I mean, it's no longer the Republicans. If you don't agree with Donald Trump, you are now officially a rhino. You're a rhino. I don't know what the hell you're, a stegosaurus at this point. It's MAGA or nothing. Or nothing.
I am worried that crowd, the personality cult, may be bigger than I think. But I just think most of those people, when they are asked, because it's always been a popularity contest the year before, there's no reason to think this year is different. I think when they say Trump, what they mean is screw you media. I hate you Democrats. I hate Biden. I hate what's going on. And the first name they can think of, I mean, ask me to name a football player. What's his name? Tom Brady. Okay, I'm out now.
Taylor Swift. She's the biggest football player in the world now.
I got no more names for you. So I think a lot of people are like that, I mean, the not caring about politics has utterly foreign to me, but you do meet such people. And when they say Trump, I think it means something different. And to that extent, I agree with Mar that I love Trump supporters. I mean, even when I hated him when he was president, and you'd see these huge Trump flags, it would always warm my heart. The big signs. I thought, I'm sure I would like these people because I think they like him because of all that wall stuff, because of how he was going to put us first, how he was going to bring jobs back, how he was going to, strike better trade deals. Well, didn't do any of that, but he moved the embassy. What do you think now, voter? Mm-hmm. Now, those people, I think we win back the percentage of the ones where they literally wouldn't care if you were governing exactly like Biden. They're just slobbering over Trump. Yeah, we're not going to win them back.
And you said you travel a lot, right? I assume in 2015, 2016, when you nailed the Trump thing, you had the MAGA, the Republicans, taking pictures with you, shaking your hand, giving you hugs. When you travel now, I assume the liberals still hate you, no doubt. What's the Republican MAGA people say to you when they see you?
Well, it's probably not representative because of where the places I'm going to end up. But actually, after the I don't know if it was after 2020 or if it was after January 6th, I've had so many Republicans come up to me and say, I hated you when you were attacking Trump during the presidency, and now I see you were right. So that's all I've gotten from Republicans. Now, I don't think that's representative. I haven't gone to, I don't know where these Trump cultists live. I mean, when I saw January 6th, I think I tweeted this, I thought to myself, I've been wondering who still supports this guy. Okay, there they are. And they're not there. They're not exactly masters of the universe.
The shaman.
The shaman, exactly. Those are the people. So I'm not in a place where
I want to believe you. I want to believe you, but the numbers don't support what you're saying. So it makes you look bitter, and it makes you look angry, and it makes you look that no one can please you. Trust me, like you're somebody that I watched over the years, even till today. When you talk, there's in finance, there's a guy that they think he's cuckoo. His name is Michael Burry. Michael Burry's the guy from the movie Big Short. He's the guy that said the market's going to collapse. He's out of his mind. He's crazy. He's not. He just had a $1.6 billion bet against the S&P 500 6 weeks ago. They're like, what? So he took $1.6 billion of his client's money and he shorted the S&P 500. What's this guy thinking? No, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. He's this, he's that. I want to know what he has to say, right? Okay. You are a Michael Burry of politics because you said Trump's going to win, and he did. Now, Michael Burry's not 100%, right? He's not always going to get it right. It's impossible, right? Because it's speculation. There's a lot of things that came up. Same with you. So to be fair to you, you're not going to be 100% right. This is not a world that you can be 100% right. But a part of me is listening to you and saying, okay, is she upset with maybe, you wanted something from him, he didn't give it to you? That's option number one. Okay. 2.
Yeah, a wall.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Number 2, is she upset that maybe he said he was going to do what he was going to do and he didn't? Okay, fair. You're right. The wall and all this other stuff, great. Yeah, you had House, you had Congress, you had Senate, all this. Fair. Is she upset that, maybe they had a feud and something went there? Maybe.
About the wall.
What is she upset about? Now, your confidence.
I don't think I could be clearer about this.
No, I am with you. You've been very clear today to understand where you stand with this here. But the voter is still saying, we want this guy back in on the Republican side than anybody else. And it ain't even close. We were at both GOP debates. I'm not going to lie to you. I was at the first one, Milwaukee, exciting. Second one, we fell asleep. Half the audience was asleep. It was boring. First one, Vivek showed up. Second one, Nikki Haley showed up. Both, DeSantis was number 2. So he can't pull off the first.
Not in the polls.
I know not in the polls, but, when you watch him, he's just the safe guy. He gives the safe answers. The first one, he kind of leaned on Christie to go after, Vivek and to go after Trump, but he didn't go after Trump. But on the second one, his campaign guys came back and said, if you're really going for it, you got to go after Trump. So then he went after Trump. And then in the conversation with Sean Hannity, I think we should do more of these. I would love to do a one-on-one. If we're doing one with Newsom, I'd love to do one with Trump. Okay, yeah, great. But then the audience and voters are like, still the same. No movement.
Right.
There is nothing that's exciting. It's almost like a person you like that you want to see flourish,
right?
But they can't win the people over. So what do you do then? So let's just kind of go in this scenario with you. Let's say it is Trump, okay? And let's say it's against Biden, maybe Kamala. Long shot Newsom. I don't think Newsom could, because if Newsom did, they're going to say, look, the white man fired a black woman's job. And that storyline on the Republicans is going to be phenomenal. They're not going to let Newsom, even though it should be Newsom, they're just not going to let it happen here. It'll happen 2028. It's catastrophic for Democrats if he takes it over Kamala. So let's say it is Biden-Trump. What are you going to do? Who are you going to support? Are you going to sit this one out? Are you going to vote for Joe Jorgensen? Are you going to be like, I'm going to go libertarian, independent? Are you going to wait for RFK to do something? What is Ann Coulter going to do?
I am worried that it could be Trump, but one prediction I'm very confident of is if it is Trump, he's going to lose. In fact, it'll probably be a 1964-style landslide. So it'll be a slow-motion airplane crash for me. And I mean, as you'll see from my Substack, I don't write that much about. Obviously, as we're heading into an election year, I'm writing a lot more about politics, but it's more about specific things like immigration, like crime, like anti-white racism and the affirmative action cases. So I figure, and there are people who do that, and I find them very interesting. If it's Trump, I'm not paying attention. I don't want to watch the plane crash. And the one satisfaction I will have is, and it's not satisfaction, I've done everything I can to save this country from high crimes and misdemeanors through even defending Trump to some extent, and resistance is futile by attacking the media and writing in Trump We Trust. I've done everything I can do. It's over at that point. And wouldn't say it's satisfaction, but the people who are going to suffer the most are the ones in the Trump cult, are the 10,000 people or however many thousand ran into that Capitol building. I'm still going to have a great life. In fact, my pool boy is going to be a lot cheaper. And you know who's going to really suffer? those people in the cult who just don't care and won't look at the wall and won't look at the issues and won't look at the fact that we're becoming a third world country, and they're going to be pushed aside and they'll be living up in the shacks like in Venezuela. My life is fine. In Brazil, in Venezuela, I'm going to do great, and I'm doing everything I can to save the lives of people who apparently hate me.
What if you're wrong?
I just told you what my life is going to be like if I'm wrong.
Pool, cleaner's going to be cheaper, all that stuff. But what if you're
She's
wrong?
going to have a pool boy.
Which part of that is wrong?
But no. What I mean is, okay, so I really try to think on why some of the things didn't get done on first term, okay? You know, sometimes a first-term president's biggest fear is what? To be a one-term president. It's a fear.
It wasn't his.
But no, it was. Pre-COVID, he would have been a two-term president.
No, he would not have.
He would. The economy was good. There was no wars. ISIS was gone.
What's the one demographic he lost compared to 2016? Anyone know? Anyone know? What's the one demographic he lost?
The women?
Nope. White men. And it was in mostly the industrial Midwest, the states he lost. That is not because of COVID. They weren't living in New York City.
But he gained a bunch of other things. You're picking one thing he lost out of all the other things he won. But here's where I'm going with
Well,
this.
he lost the election.
What he
That's
did.
kind of important. You got to win elections.
But losing the election was a black swan. I mean, you're smart enough to know it wasn't like a
It wasn't. I knew he was going to lose the election. That one I would have bet you $1 million on that. In fact, I did make bets on that. That's why I only make stake bets now, because people never pay monetary bets, and I made a lot of bets on that.
With COVID.
Of course he was going to lose. The one thing I underestimated.
With or without COVID? With or without COVID?
Of course.
Based on what premise?
Yeah, I want to know this.
Based on what premise? Both Democrats and Republicans all say he would have won.
I warned him about this in columns, I think, before he was president, maybe right when he became president. Think back to the one-term president. Is it this last time? Yeah, last time Republicans had a one-term president. George W. Bush. And why was that? One time at the Republican National Convention, he said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." And the media tricked him into raising taxes. And his voters said, "You betrayed us. You made a promise and you lied." He didn't say it at every single rally, every single day. When everything, your entire campaign is, "I'm going to build the wall," and you don't build the wall? Of course he was going to lose re-election. So the one thing I underestimated was, did not think he was that stupid. He is that stupid.
Respectfully, you sound bitter now. And the reason why...
Respectfully, I wanted a wall like the rest of his voters.
Totally get it. I did too. I'm not sitting here saying I didn't want the wall. I still want the wall. I'm a guy that left Iran. I lived in Iran 10 years, 2 years in a refugee camp. Trust me, I wanted that as well. But in my mind, I don't sit there and agree with a lot of things he did. I'm just sitting there saying, what happened to America during his term? And I think he would have gotten reelected, was it not for COVID. But let me go back to the question here. So what if, let's do the what if. What if in his mind, you know him better than I do, you communicated with him, you've been on calls with him, you've been in meetings with him, you've had more interaction with him than I have. Mine is pure speculation is what I'm doing. But I'm a person that's body language, I'm watching frustrations of people. That's the world I'm in the last 20-something years. What if in his mind he's saying, everything that, such and such things I'm going to do second terms, these things I'm going to do first terms. On the second term, I don't give a shit if I get reelected or not, I'm done. So you like me, you don't like me, I'm going to get all of this stuff done in second term, first term. Let's make sure we get the economy to be scored away. Let's make sure we get the job and unemployment to be good for certain communities. Let's make sure we fix certain things with, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. Let's do ISIS. Let's do Qassem Soleimani. Let's do some of these things. And then second term, we'll do the wall, we'll do this, we'll do that. What if that was part of his strategy? What if, that's not saying it's the right strategy, what if that was part of his strategy?
Well, he should have told us that during the campaign. I'm not going to build the wall first term. No, when I said I'm going to start day one, when I said I'm deporting dreamers day one, no, what I meant was day one of my second term. So A, don't lie to us when you're campaigning and getting our votes. B, you sound like a battered woman making excuses. Well, maybe he won't hit me next time. It's been 4 years. He's been beating the crap out of you. He had 4 years, Patrick. 4 years,
Yeah.
2 with a Republican Congress. Oh, but I know he could have not hit me, but maybe he was thinking he was waiting for our golden anniversary to stop hitting me. He was just waiting for that perfect time. No, he had 4 years. He didn't build it. I don't know what other proof you could possibly want.
But didn't they? I mean, they did start
He did
building.
nothing for 2 years.
There was zero building of the wall during Trump's.
And in the end, he built, according to his own Homeland Security, about 50 miles.
And
50 miles across a 2,000-mile border.
And then how much of all that, with what Pat said, the goals and this and that, I do disagree. I think Trump would have won 100% if there wasn't COVID. But what about everything that was happening during that 4 years? Russia, collusion, racist. It was just over and over and over. How can you even focus at one thing when they were trying to get him out since day one?
Well, if he can't focus, he shouldn't be president. And it was the same way during the campaign. You think they were, it was all, wine and roses during the campaign. It was one thing after another. The Mexican judge, the Mexican rapist, every little thing he said, they would leap on. It was headline news. He was bozo, the McCain thing. How about Access Hollywood? They wait until 11 days before the election. And yet he still managed to give those rally speeches saying, I'm going to build the wall. Day one. He could stay really focused when he was hornswoggling us. But then when he has all the power in the world, he's president of the United States. He can hire whomever he wants to. He can get the wall built. Day one, like you said, in Anchor Babies, day one. And he totally could have done that. He kept claiming, hey, let's take Anchor Babies. Anchor Babies, as I'm sure you all know from my magnificent book, Adios America, Anchor Babies are an invention of one justice on the Supreme Court, Justice Brennan, wrote, it's not even part of the holding, it's dicta, as we lawyers say. It's in a footnote that anyone born in the United States, even to an absurd concept, is a United States citizen. And, I always thought, that's odd. Why would the drafters of the 14th Amendment have thought, okay, everybody, now in case a Mexican runs across the border at 8 months pregnant, we've got to make sure that child is a citizen. And everyone's saying, oh my gosh, that isn't already in the Constitution? I mean, it makes no sense. So I look it up, I find out it's just from this one case, Justice Brennan drops it. No Congress has ever passed a law saying the children of illegal aliens are citizens. No court has ever ruled that. It is just like a policy that's followed. In fact, after the 14th Amendment, you know who wasn't a United States citizen? The children of American Indians born on U.S. soil were not U.S. citizens because they were subject to the tribal law. It is famous federal judges who don't agree with me on anything. Richard Posner, most cited federal judge, 7th Circuit. He used to say, would you end this nonsense? And this was 30 years ago. He was begging Congress to clarify that the 14th Amendment does not apply to anchor babies. Okay, having given you that history, what would a president do about it? Well, I'd push Congress to pass a law. But in the interim, sign an executive order. Weirdly, in this one case, you're not overturning a law, you're not overturning a court case because, there is no law, there is no court case. And he kept saying he was going to do it. He said it during the campaign over and over and over again. You know, when the next, and almost last time he said it was right before the midterm elections. It would have taken him less time to sign his name than to put out a press release saying he was going to issue.
So why do you think he didn't do it?
He doesn't give a crap.
About what?
About anything he said about immigration and the border and anchor babies. He doesn't care. He wants to, it's all The Apprentice to him. He wants to be beloved. He wants to be able to sell stuff. He wants the crowds cheering for him. So as long as he says it, I mean, he's as dumb as the media is. They both seem to think that once the words come out of his mouth, it's as if he's done it. So he gets attacked as if he's done it. He feels like, oh, well, that's done. I said I'm going to do it.
So then you think the big poll lead that he has right now on everybody else, all those guys that support him are dumb. You're saying
no. I'm saying he's.
What are they happy about? Think what they're happy about. Like, why are they doing it again?
I don't know. I could be wrong. I think a lot of it is hatred for his enemies, and I understand that. I mean, that's why I think a lot of us really liked Sarah Palin, who had a lot of flaws, and yet it's the enemies of my enemies. And oh my gosh, are the enemies of Donald Trump easy to hate?
And have you ever been married before or no? Mm-hmm. Did you ever get close to getting married? Mm-hmm. So
this is getting a little personal.
But I'm gonna ask a different, and I'm gonna ask you from.
And by the way, again, I think this is sexist. Oh, the Christie point when I was for Christie, yeah, they'd all say, "Oh, chubby chaser." I didn't even know what that meant. It's like girls who like fat guys to have sex with. No, this isn't a sexual thing. I want a wall. My social life is fine.
No, that's not what I'm asking. But the part I'm asking is. When you're saying this is getting kind of personal, it's a question. You don't have to answer it. You can simply say, I don't want to talk about it. I'm totally okay with that. No, I feel certain people are very hard to please.
I'm not hard to please.
Well, let me make my point. So, for example, I've had relationships
this is
where...
the craziest thing I've ever heard. He runs on building a wall. Yeah. 4 years he doesn't build a wall.
No, it's fine.
Oh, you demand everything.
No, but I would...
can't please this woman. Are you mad?
No, I'm not. I'm not mad. I'm just watching you.
Listen to his question.
So for me, I feel like there are certain people that you have to be very careful because they're either super gung-ho about you and like I've dated girls where relationship was unfreaking believably high peak. The peak was so high, it doesn't make any sense, right, on how high the peak was. Like, this is going to be freaking insane. But dude, talk about the low. The low was painful. You needed 15 therapists and friends and sponsored by tequila and vodka and whiskey to be able to tolerate the shitty low you would go through with this girl. And I'm like, I can't tolerate this shit. And I've been around the block. I'm like you when you were talking about, first I wanted this girl, then wow. So, I wasn't the innocent one. Eventually, I'm like, dude, I'm shutting it down. This is it. I want to build a family. I want to have a different kind of a life. And I never thought I was going to get married. I thought I was going to stay single for the rest of my life because no one was going to make me happy. And then I sat there and I said, is it going to be 100% of everything across the board? And then that's it? Is it going to be like, they have to give me, that's it? And then I'm not going to look at all the other stuff? You're clinging on one thing that I'm also not happy about. I wanted the border. I'm also not happy about that. By the way, a lot of the things he ran on, he should have done all of that stuff. He has to answer that question. A person like you has to give that question to a moderator in the presidential election that's coming up. Someone has to pose that question. I want to know what his answer is going to be. I'd like to see some other people that are his friends ask questions like that, Hannity and others, to actually ask those questions because I want to know. But at the same time, I don't know if any presidential candidate is going to be able to please Ann Coulter for 8 years. I don't think that's possible because I think that person is going to have to do everything you want them to do to win your favor, and it is so attractive to get your support because during the election there were certain people that are superstars that played a role of Trump winning in 2016. I think you're one of them. I think Kellyanne was one of them.
She didn't support him until 2 months before the election. She was Cruz.
But I thought she played her role in those 2 months. I think she crushed it when she was.
She didn't show up and defend him for Access Hollywood. Ann did.
I understand. Again, I'm not putting you guys against each other on who's more than the other one. Your method of going out there and going after the enemy, you're fearless. You scare the crap out of the enemy. You're not a person that people sit there and like. You make people on the other side shake. Yep. Okay, so you played a role, she played a role, other people played a role, okay? But then we come to now, you're clinging on one thing, okay?
It's more than one thing.
Then unpack it if you're saying it's more than one thing. If you're saying it's more than just a border, what else
Okay, a couple things. The reason I mentioned Kellyanne isn't, and don't pull this, Seinfeld, catfight, isn't to say, no, I was for Trump a few weeks after he announced. And what I have noticed... You
were the first to make it clear. Everybody knows that.
And did you guys know this guy in 2015? Because I want confirmation on this point.
Adam, you did.
Okay. Yeah. You're going to answer this.
No, Tom did, yeah.
A lot of us who supported... Every single person I know who supported Trump in 2015, and everyone hated us for it. But a lot of my friends did. I mean, after LA, you see what the problem is before a lot of the rest of the country. I don't know one person who supported Donald Trump in 2015 who supports him now, who isn't betrayed. The people who support him now are the Johnny-come-latelys who absolutely opposed him. They were for Cruz, they were for Rubio, they didn't care about anything that Trump was running on. And then, oh, screw it, he's the nominee. Let's see if we can get tax cuts out of him. They think it's magic that he won because they never understood why he won, because they never understand, and it's not just one issue. It's whether our country continues to exist is the issue. And as for your ex-girlfriend, you needed therapy and tequila, and low was low, and it would go on and on and on. Now I understand why you're
sarcasm.
Now I know understand why you're willing to put up with Donald Trump, because I hit that and I'm out the door.
Yeah, that sounds good when you're saying that. It's a good one-liner on what you're saying, but you still sound bitter and frustrated. Look what happened with a guy named Trevor Bauer.
That is just an insult.
No, it is.
You're not getting me. This is like being called a racist all day.
No, it's not. I'm not.
That's not an argument. I keep making arguments, and you keep saying you sound bitter. You got to come up with something other than you sound bitter.
Well, you do, though. You do. So do you know what happened with Trevor Bauer? Do you know this guy named Trevor Bauer? Okay. So, Tom, did you see what happened with Trevor Bauer yesterday with the story?
Wait a second. I didn't get an answer. Did he support Trump in 2015?
Well,
2015, not 2016.
Whether it's him, I will say this. You said something actually very shocking that we should address. You're saying you don't know one person who supported Trump in 2015, 2016 that is still with him today.
I'm in my circle, yeah.
That's a whole different
circle.
Yeah.
How big is your circle?
What difference does it make? What are you going to say?
Anne has a big circle. It's not a small circle. She's got contacts from everywhere.
Nobody's denying
Bannon
that. We know who Ann Coulter is. Okay, so let's say it's a couple hundred. Let's say it's a couple thousand. Let's say it's 10,000.
Okay, even publicly, I can't think of anyone.
I know
Go back.
so many people that were with him in 2016 that are unanimously still with him today. And don't believe me.
2015.
Don't believe me.
I said 2015.
15, 16. What's the difference?
It's a huge difference.
What do you mean? When he was,
we supported him for the issues and what he was saying. You guys wanted Jeb.
I'm saying
you would have been perfully happy with Jeb.
I'm saying the people
and he governed like
that
Jeb.
voted for him.
No, that's not what I. Do you understand what I said? There's a reason that I'm saying 2015 and not 2016.
You're saying
Obviously, people who supported him in 2016. Who else would it be? The people who voted him against him in 2016.
No, what you're asking about is in 2015 when he declared, and we still had Cruz, Jeb, Rubio, and a cast of thousands,
all of them,
right? And some of them hadn't even fully declared yet, right? The
all
gold
through
rush
2015.
happened.
Fox 100% against him. Murdoch against him. Wall Street Journal against him.
Did you support him when he declared in 2015 and where you had this slate? And to your point about name recognition, everybody thought that Jeb was going to roll. And at Thanksgiving,
$140 million, they won.
Yep.
At Thanksgiving 2015, all the money in the PACs was behind Jeb. Pledge, not donated, but pledge. He had it all. So you're saying, were you behind Trump 2015? I'll say I wasn't. I was beginning of 16. Soon as I saw him picking people off, soon as I saw what he was able to do, I said, that cat is going to keep picking these people off. And so,
could I say?
So I was early 16, but I see what you mean. It's like when he declared, were you with him and saying, "This is my guy"? Or
not just June 15th. I'm giving you 6 months to come around. He kept talking about immigration, and I would add that you think he's a good debater because, and I looked this up and wrote about this recently on Substack too. It's easy to forget because he did kind of change the whole campaign, sort of changed the landscape. Republicans are afraid to say some of the stuff they used to say. Everyone on that debate stage with him was open borders, and they were all attacking him when he came out for the Muslim ban. Paul Ryan, the rest of them, that's not who we are. So he was being attacked specifically the same way DeSantis does the right thing on COVID, and he's being attacked, and he stands strong. Trump was standing strong. All the rest of them were attacking him. That's the 215 landscape for you. Those of you who didn't support him in 2015 don't give a crap about immigration. You wanted tax cuts. So congratulations, you got your tax cuts. But those of us who supported him for the issues he ran on that set him apart from every other candidate say he failed.
You're talking about the early adopters.
Well, because
6 months you have.
Well, and take somebody like me because I'm the average Joe, military veteran, family, legal immigrants, brother and sister, military veterans as well. I could honestly have cared less about Trump. You know, you're fired, all that. I could never care less. The personality when he was on stage, when he started going at people, then I started becoming more attracted because I'm like, okay, he's funny, he's witty. I'm a comedian myself. But then I think once seeing what they did with, you know, the collusion, the Russia, and that he risked, and I got into it with Steve Schmidt big time, where I was like, because he's just Lincoln Project, it's all BS. I go, this guy sacrificed everything, wittingly or not wittingly, pulled back the curtain and let us all see what they were doing. So it's like almost like we want him, and again, I'm saying for us because these are the people that you guys were talking about. It's almost we have to because it's not fair what they did, and we want him to go again. The ISIS he destroyed. To me, he tried with the wall. They wouldn't let him because of, you know, racism. He's racist, Mexicans, all that stuff. I'm that average person that's like, I'm sticking with the guy that I went for the first time, and I want to see him try to accomplish all those things the second time because from the beginning it wasn't fair. I'm that average person that was with them from 2015 because once I started seeing him, I was like, it's Trump. I'm from New York. You're from New York, right? And I wanted that guy to win. So it's like, I'm that average person that's still sticking with him to this day. It's weird. I'm that guy. I'm that guy that you guys keep talking about because I'm like, everything's, they're cheating. They're actively cheating right now. In New York, this case, the judge is smiling and laughing in the camera. It's all political. It's all to destroy the guy. I get what you're saying. And trust me, I'm 100% pro-wall. I'm 100% pro-military. I want all the soldiers that are just hanging out here and they're not deployed anywhere, put them on the border. I want armed people at the border to secure us. And I mean, and I feel you in that sense that they did fail, but all the other stuff, we can't deny all the other stuff that he did. He did a lot.
I will tell you this.
I would like to pursue that one. I mean, yes, I loved his judges, but it was all the Federal Society picking them because luckily Jared Kushner didn't care about judges. So I don't think you give him a lot of credit for the judges because any Republican, these are the ones the Federal Society was sending up. And that's who the Republican presidents listened to. They happened to get it right this time. The Federal Society has gotten better too. So other than, I'm excluding that. What did he do that you like that Jeb Bush wouldn't have done?
Well, here's how I'll answer that. Where we are right now today, just look at America, compare that to, let's say 2017.
No, it's not compared to a Democrat. That's easy.
No, not Democrat. Well, that's easy. But what I'm saying is, though, that's the America that I want to live in. I want to feel safe. I want the economy to be booming. And then all of a sudden, and this virus comes out of a lab that we own from a country that he's holding accountable. Because mind you, the establishment love China. They love that relationship with trade and everything. Trump came in and said, no. You guys are going to pay for your shit. And then all of a sudden, on election year, this virus just comes out, shuts down the whole world, mail-in ballots. It's almost like it was a plan, but that's my point. I felt way better. I could have cared less. The racism and all that, I was like, yeah. I didn't believe any of that. But now if you look at what's happening, like it's a no-brainer to want that guy to be running.
Well, one of the things besides COVID that was very big in 2020, and you say, and this reminds me that you want to feel safe, and boy, we don't feel safe now, especially in New York and LA.
Oh God, Philly, all these places.
San Francisco. I mean, if you're a city person like I am, where do you go? Anyway, and that was the George Floyd, May 25th, 2020, changed the world. Suddenly we have to release all the criminals, among other things. Mm-hmm. One place you would have been safe in 2020 was in Florida. Thank you, Ron DeSantis, passing law after law where you can shoot looters, anti-rioting laws. I mean, there were specific actions he took that meant there were no riots and no police stations were burnt down and you did not have police being assaulted. What did the commander-in-chief do? What did Trump do? He sent out tweets in all caps, law and order. Point one. Point two, you know what he said in the first debate with Joe Biden? And this is after a year of them burning, BLM and Antifa, burning down police stations, ripping down statues. I mean, anarchy like I've never seen in this country before. When that police station went down in Minneapolis, I was watching TV crying. It was so horrible. They talk about January 6th. Let's talk about that. At the first debate, what did Donald Trump say to Joe Biden? You called them super predators. I'm releasing people from prison. How about the First Step Act? Thank you, Jared. He's releasing criminals. You want to feel safe? Donald Trump ain't your guy.
Okay, so let's go back to Florida. You said what Ron did during this time for Florida. That's why we moved here, by the way. He
Oh,
crushed
really?
it. Yeah, we're here because of DeSantis.
Oh,
Just so
really?
you know. Here's where you're about to be spooked. We like both
Where did you
policies.
come from?
I lived in LA for 20-some years.
so you know.
Okay. I was in the Army for 3 years, 2.5 years. I was in Dallas for 5 years, Plano. And then we moved here. We kind of wanted the best of both worlds. If
Yeah.
Texas and California had a baby, I think it's Florida.
Yeah.
And then Ron crushed it. The challenge for me was, I think Ron, with his book launch, campaign, marketing, timing, messaging, selling, to me, he was playing defense, thinking Trump's not going to be there by the end. And his strategy and Newsom's strategy was Biden's not going to be there at the end. Trump's not going to be there at the end. It's going to be you and I. That was the dream matchup. Lakers against the Celtics.
Yeah.
The two young, guys are going to come up and change politics. Instead of two 70, 80-year-olds, now it's going to be two 40-year-olds, right? That's the look a lot of people wanted. But unfortunately, DeSantis needs help, is what he needs, in a complete different area that Trump needs help with. DeSantis needs help selling policies. Trump needs help with a complete different gamut of issues that he's got.
Brain transplant.
Yeah, and we'll see what's going to happen with this the next 3-6 months. I think a lot's going to be, we're going to learn, like you're saying, I'm afraid to make, not afraid, but I don't want to make predictions too early. We're going to learn a lot, I think, January, February, probably November, we'll learn on what's going on. December, we'll learn what's going on. But right now, they're still going at it. Let me change the subject
And I know
here.
I'm making crazy predictions, by the way.
And you're in that world. That's why you're 13 times New York Times bestseller, because you say outlandish things and people want to go read about who hate or love you. But think about, what do you think about what happened with McCarthy, Speaker of the House, and Matt Gaetz?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me. Because I'm angry about this. I should say I really like Matt Gaetz. He's incredibly articulate. I agree with him on a lot of issues. He was utterly unfairly smeared, and I tweeted at him the day he was doing this, please don't do this, please don't do this, because there are other Republicans who aren't in like 90% Republican districts, Matt. They have to get reelected. Right now we have the narrowest of majorities in the House. We don't have the Senate at all, and we don't have the presidency at all. So I want, like Matt Gaetz and the rest of these rah-rah people to watch that little cartoon they used to have, how a bill becomes law. Okay, McCarthy could have been the most badass you want. It goes and it dies in the Senate. It doesn't even get brought up in the Senate. And if somehow you got the Senate to, have them have brain transplants, it goes to Biden and he vetoes it. So I tweeted at Gaetz saying, your number one objective is to increase majorities or get majorities in House, Senate, and win the presidency. Once you have that, you can do stuff like, oh my gosh, build the wall. Okay, I'm not going back to that. And so I'm angry with him for this. And then this morning at 7 a.m., I sent out to my Substack subscribers, be suspicious when the New York Times has an above the fold, this is in today's New York Times, above the fold front page article promoting Steve Bannon.
Oh, God.
Now let's ask ourselves before we see what it is. Is this going to be a good idea for Republicans or a bad idea for Republicans? And I was reading the article, obviously in the middle of the night. I actually scheduled this to go out at whatever it was, 6 or 7. And what he's telling Republicans is, and he's quoted in there, which I put in the Substack, act crazy. Come up with the most outrageous amendments you can come up with. I want total chaos. We're going to shut down the government, shut it down. I'm going to show people shutdowns are great. Okay, what's the biggest advantage the Republican Party has right now? We're not insane. We have Democrats pushing transgenders, poisoning and mutilating little children. They are aggressively discriminating against white Americans. They have opened up the border like we have never seen before. It is creeping into, even New Yorkers are fed up with this now. They're never going back to sanctuary city. The sanctuary cities are overturning it, and the Democrats will not stop. Last night I saw on, and I don't even think this was MSNBC, CNN, this woman was, I mostly watch MSNBC to the extent I watch because they're really insane. This woman was interviewing the first transgender legislator who was elected in some tiny little election in Tennessee. And I'm thinking, you people won't give up on this.
Yep.
You won't stop. Boys in girls sports. Ukraine, I don't think it's very popular right now, and I think it's going to be less popular next year when people can't pay their bills. So what's the Republicans' brand right now? Sane. And Bannon is saying, act insane. This will be great. Woohoo, war. No, please, 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 Republicans, don't be insane.
That's your pitch to Republicans versus what Bannon is saying?
Yes.
Bannon advises GOP to commit suicide. Okay, so McCarthy says he's not coming back. Okay, you said you like Gates. You like his
But
style
I didn't
of
like
communication.
this.
Yeah, you didn't like this. First time ever, right? This has happened. Is this what they're doing to the Speaker of the House, right?
Yeah.
Pre-Civil War.
And it was fairly quick. It's like, bam. It's like when it got it done. One, who do you think is going to replace him? By the way, did you see the way,
That guy
the
is
way
crazy.
that was pretty solid.
He sent
He's
everybody
been working out. Yeah.
He sent everybody
You
home
can
for a
tell.
week too, right? He sent everybody home, and they're not going back. Matt Gaetz till Tuesday.
Who do you think's going to replace him? You're hearing a bunch of people are talking about, this is an opportunity. Trump should come and be the Speaker of the House, and you don't have to be a member of the Congress to be this. Who do you think's actually going to end up being chosen and be the Speaker of the House?
Well, oddly, this is actually kind of out of my wheelhouse. I don't pay attention at that level.
How important do you think that position is?
Not very right now, because we don't have, again, they have a very, very, very narrow majority.
So you can't really do anything.
In one house. Well, this is what they ought to be doing. I won't just criticize. And by the way, I'm advising this to them all the time on Twitter and talk radio and here. What Republicans ought to be doing in this situation, again, number one objective, win more seats, get majorities. That's all you want to do. Okay, so we have lots of positions that are 80-20 popular. The wall, anchor babies, dreamers. I say Ukraine funding, but I'll give you that's 50-50 still. Boys in girls sports. Lots of crime issues they could be doing. Anyway, they should be passing bills rather. The Republicans can do this that are 80-20 popular. Okay, I'll give you 60-40 popular. That is so easy. That is so easy. Okay, get the Democrats to vote against it. Send it to the Senate. Get the Democrats in the Senate to vote against it. And a lot of Democrats, every Democrat in the House is up for re-election next year, and 1/3 of the senators are, and a lot of them are going to be looking at their re-elections, and they may have to go to their Democrat, and the leader, Schumer, or whomever it is in the House, and say, I got to vote for this. I'm going to lose my election. So you could actually get some laws through because Democrats would be afraid. But worst case scenario, you have all these issues to run on. This guy voted for, boys in girls sports.
And I think you were very accurate in saying, we have so much going for us if you're the Republican Party right now. You're up in all metrics across the board. Who do you want to see run this country? If you're talking economy, you're talking immigration, if you're talking the wall that you've been solely pointing out, all these issues, inflation, gas prices,
banning
energy.
gas stoves.
You have
that one.
You have all these metrics that Republicans are polling way ahead of Democrats these days. Talk about the sane versus insane. But let's actually unpack what's actually happening in the House, because it looks insane, right? So we all remember this was a year ago when Matt Gaetz, it took 15 different votes. How many votes, Pat? 15 different times for Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker of the House. Little did we know that part of the agreement was the fact that McCarthy agreed that just one member of the House, right, would be required to call for a vote to vacate the office at any time. So part of the agreement that McCarthy made with Gaetz was, all right, if you vote for me, I'm willing to agree that if only one member of the House comes back. So this all just came back to bite him in the ass. What's my point? The 80% thing, Reagan, we were just in Reagan Library in Simi Valley. I actually saw that quote. I'm like, oh, that's how negotiations work. You're not going to get 100% of what you want. 80% is a perfectly amazing number. Where does the Republican Party go from here? It was 8 members of the House that sided with who? The Democrats.
Yep.
Okay, so you had 8 hardline MAGA Republicans, 8 of them. I think it's important to know their names. Other than Matt Gaetz, you have Andy Biggs, Ken Buck, Nancy Mace, Tim Burkett, Eli Crane, Matt Rosendahl, and Bob Good. I've literally never heard of one of their names other than Matt Gaetz. And we talk politics all the time. You have 8 people. You know, they said the gang of 8 in the Intelligence Committee. This is the fucking gang of 8 in the House that is basically tearing down the Republican Party.
Yes.
You got people like Newt Gingrich. You have Jeanine Pirro like going crazy on Fox, saying basically the Republicans.
Which side are they on?
That's my question. Well, Newt, what side is Newt on? But basically, is the Republican Party so invested in their morals and resting on their laurels?
Right.
Are they cutting off their nose despite their face doing this?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes. All we need to do is get majorities. And you just reminded me of something else. I don't know the details of this, but someone very smart, part of what has caused this. Actually, I won't even say it because he'll yell at me because I don't know the name of the man. I don't know the statistical mistakes he made, but someone very smart. And I asked him to write it up, and I'm going to Substack this. I'll tell you who it is. You know how smart he is. John Lott, More Guns, Less Crime. He emailed me last night saying this whole thing in the House is in fact Donald Trump's fault because he put an idiot in charge of the census. He didn't know how to do it, and we lost just straight out of the chute 7 congressional seats. If we had 7 more congressional seats, this never would have happened. What's our majority? 4 seats?
Yeah,
Isn't it 4?
What is it, 221 to 212 with 2 vacancies? So yeah, you can't lose these types of things. So now, does Speaker of the House Donald Trump have a nice ring to it? What are your thoughts on that?
No. Okay, I don't want to be the one to break this to Patrick, but you can't be Speaker if you've been indicted.
Oh, damn.
Is that how it works? So you're saying that literally he cannot be Speaker of the House because he's
literally
been indicted?
Because of the rules, but I don't think.
But can you
this
be
would ever
president
happen.
if you've been indicted?
Sure, you can be elected if you've been indicted. You can be in. There was a black congressman in New York years ago. I ought to know this. I did go to law school, but as I recall, he was running for office from prison and won election and went up to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court tried to expel him or not seat him, and the Supreme Court said, if that's who the voters vote for,
Mike, is that him? No?
No, it was a long time
That
ago.
is not a black guy.
That is not a black guy.
I think it was before I was born, and it's a famous black politician that's kind of on the tip of my tongue. It's not even that important, but the answer is if the voters vote for you, you can serve from prison.
So Donald Trump indicted cannot be Speaker of the House, but could still be President of the United States again.
Except there's no possible way.
Yeah, the Texas guys,
64 style land.
the Texas guys that have nominated Donald Trump for that is just
Charlie Rangel.
Yeah, that's just a window dressing because it's legislatively impossible. I think Kevin McCarthy got schooled. I think he got schooled. All these guys supposedly went to law school, right? And you would think Kevin McCarthy would know the difference between a performance clause and a unilateral action clause. He gave Matt Gaetz a unilateral action clause. And what a unilateral action clause is basically like saying, your dad makes this thing. If you get straight A's, we're going on vacation. If you always clean your room, you're going to get this allowance. And then he puts a unilateral action clause at the bottom that says, unless I'm really in a bad mood one day and I'll do none of it. And that's basically what Matt Gaetz put in. He had all these things in there that just said, if we're ever in a bad mood one day, we can call a vote and toss you out because we know we'll have the Dems plus 8 is 216 to 210. Yeah, that's all we need. We can even have Eli Crane, Arizona, good guy, by the way, go the other way, and they thought he was. And maybe it's only 5 votes, but we only need 1, and we're going to get you. And I feel like McCarthy was so desperate in the middle of what had become a media circus of electing the speaker that he basically did a bad contract. And there's entrepreneurs out there all the time that Pat and I know this because we're operators. We don't live in the political sphere. We live in where we're building jobs and following visions and stuff. And when you have a contract, if you get too excited at the end, you make mistakes. You give in at the end because you give in to the emotion at the end of the deal.
I don't think he would have been speaker otherwise.
That's the point.
So
he was so married to be speaker that no wasn't good enough, and instead he puts himself.
We'd still be voting on that. I mean, I genuinely hate to say
84.
this because,
Welcome, America.
Right. Matt Gaetz does a lot of great things, but that was Matt Gaetz's fault too. It was Matt Gaetz who said, "I will only vote present if you put this in," and if it hadn't been McCarthy. I mean, I kind of liked that they took a while voting for the speaker. I liked it the first few days, but I would not want to have them still voting on this. This is why Republicans need large majorities, a 4-vote majority, and it's going to be hell.
And who are the winners and losers here? We like to do that here. This is who won. This is who lost. Here's who I got. I'd love you to build on this list. The winners are obviously the Democratic Party here. It just proves that Democrats are real about governing, whether their policies are ridiculous or not. This is what they want to do. They want to win. Whereas Republicans are like, their whole mantra is less government, less governing. So it's sort of the antithesis of this. So winning are Biden, Pelosi. This is a good look for Pelosi. This never happened under my watch, never. And I got one other person, Matt Gaetz and the Gang of 8 Freedom Caucus. Who else are the winners and losers in your book in this situation?
Well, I think it's not always because Republicans are so principled. I mean, it may be I'm utterly speculating here, but because the media is so left-wing and will promote the smart Democrats and the dumb Republicans, Republicans, I sort of feel like they're kind of desperate for press. And unless they get on Fox News, they're SOL. I mean, that's one of the things Bannon said in when he's telling them, be crazy, just add amendments, make sure they're outrageous, make them crazy, forget Fox News, you're going to come on my podcast. And okay, I mean, it's often a cheap shot. I don't think it's a cheap shot. I understand their point in needing to get press and needing to get money to run. I understand that. But I think that's part of the reason there is a lure to be crazy.
Two last questions for you before we wrap up. One, what is your actual thoughts on Fox? Is Fox what it was before? Has it lost its sizzle? What is Fox today?
Cable is totally over.
Cable is over or Fox is over?
Both. I mean, Fox, that Dominion lawsuit. Okay, how about that? Everything you and all these Trump supporters are mad at me for saying, really? How do you feel now that you know that all of your heroes on Fox News, like Tucker, felt the same way, saying he hates Trump with a passion. This isn't true. Putting all these people on, knew that Trump had lost the election, saying all that came out in Discovery. Reminder, when you get a subpoena, you have to respond. Fox did it. So we have what their texts and what their emails were. And there's no daylight between what I say about Trump and what they were saying about Trump off camera. You feel good now, Trump supporters, that you were being lied to? No, that's how much they respect the audience. We're just going to lie to you and give you whatever you want. And all the networks are doing that now. I'm friends with Lawrence O'Donnell. We used to have dinner in L.A. He put me on one time. He's an MSNBC primetime host. So I don't know if people know who he is. And it was like 6 months before one of my books was coming out. And I said, okay, I'll do your show, but I want you to have me on when my book comes out. Talk about unilateral performance clause. And he said, yes, absolutely. He had me on. We had a great time. He told me, his mother told him it was the only time he looked happy. I mean, we bickered. We're friends, but he's smart. I think I'm okay. So we had a lot of fun. And then he wouldn't have me on again. And why? Because the audience didn't like it. Well, if you're going to be driven by your audience, that's why MSNBC is crazy left. That's why Fox will lie to its viewers.
See, that's why we'll have Stephen Schmidt last week, and the audience can get upset. And next week we'll have you on, and the other side of the audience can get upset. And the next week we'll have an athlete on, and then they're going to be confused half the time. We just like talking to people.
There's something I want you to do for me. You've got to get me the clip of him arguing with Steve Schmidt, because I can't bear to look at him. I can't bear to listen to him.
It's all over Twitter.
But if I can just see the clip of you,
you would enjoy
that will make me happy.
When we leave here, I'm going to give it.
And last but not least, thoughts on Tucker, Tucker's growth and what he's doing right now, and how he's exploding. His show is all over the place, getting the kind of eyeballs that he's getting. What do you think about what he's doing?
No, I think he's going to go the way I ought to say. I think the only good things he ever said on his show, he stole from me. And the crazy stuff about UFOs and we're all going to die of COVID. You probably don't remember that. Oh yeah, he was the one who drove to Mar-a-Lago to tell the president, you've got to shut down the country. Yeah, got a lot of good press for that. And January 6th was all FBI agents. Crazy. So not a fan. And I think he's going the way of the rest of them. I mean, it shows you, at least it used to. I think this is changing, and thanks to podcasts like yours, Podcasts are so much bigger now. People are cutting cable. No one under the age of 60 owns a television set. And that is so good for the conservative movement, because Fox has had way too much power too long, and it shows you the power of that media real estate. Going back to, I forget some of the early ones, Paula Zahn, Glenn Beck, Megyn Kelly, Bill O'Reilly, Tucker. Once they're gone, they're kind of gone.
You mentioned January 6th.
Meaning what? Meaning they're done? Like
no, but you have just been given the most wonderful. You've won a lottery ticket if you get a show. At least it used to be the case. I think this is changing on Fox News. For one thing, I think they're not as interesting or smart anymore. And January 6th, the only thing, I mean. What I think is stupid is the idea that this was planned by the FBI. Yes, there were FBI informants. And I remember going through this with all of the terrorism bust George Bush too used to do after 9/11. Every time they'd bust, there was that Lackawanna 7, and there was the guy who was going to blow up the Brooklyn Bridge. I forget how many there were. And there were FBI agents involved, MSNBC. That doesn't mean that these guys weren't really planning a terrorist attack. And the idea that all of those people on the mall to hear Donald Trump, no, I don't think it's legal incitement. That's dumb, but that was very, very bad for right-wingers. I wrote a book about mobs. It's called Demonic. Mobs are always demonic. I go through the history of American Revolution versus French Revolution. We're the party of the rule of law and the Constitution. We explain. No, the French Revolution, they're running around, guillotining people and with heads on pikes. That's the left. And I could say in that book and since that book, there has never been a right-wing mob in United States history. That changed on January 6th, and mobs are always bad.
And I 100%, because these are facts, 100%, because the chief of Capitol Police, Stephen Sun, who was interviewed many times, but they tried to silence him, he said he, as the chief, received the threats, death threats. They were threatening congressmen. I'm not saying the FBI planned it. What the problem with January 6th is, he knew it was going down and begged. He called, I think, 17 different agencies and asked for help, but everybody denied him. It's almost as if Nancy Pelosi, everybody was like, they didn't have to respond. Their phone records, no subpoenas, no nothing. His issue as the chief of Capitol Police, who has a higher clearance than I ever had in the military, he said he asked for help, but they didn't want to give it to him, which basically seems to me that they were like, okay, we're not planning it, but if it's going to happen, we're going to make these people look like they were really trying to take over, which I think that there's a difference when you see it that way.
In the whomever's defense, and by the way, Trump didn't really rush to send in the National Guard either, but in their defense before it happened, and since it did happen, this may sound, if you had asked me before, is the Capitol going to be attacked? I would have said what I just said. No, there's never been a right-wing mob, and the warnings they got. It just sounds like, of course, Nancy Pelosi didn't believe it. All this, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, saying the greatest domestic threat is white supremacy. Yeah. They're lying. They know it isn't. They know that. I'm sorry, white American men are the most pacific males who have ever walked the face of the earth.
Rob, can you pull that up? What was that from PBS you put up? This is what?
Yes, this is an interview with Stephen Sun done by PBS, where he discusses contacting 17 different law enforcement agencies and 1,700 officers to help battle.
Oh, and they're confirming that it was correct, that this happened.
Yes.
And so
I believe it.
Yeah, which to me, and if you really unpack it, for him to begging for help and not to get it, tells me that they wanted it to be bad, and they wanted, because they were asking the National Guard. He was begging, and they never brought it to him. They were asking for weapons.
This is on January 6th, and on January 6th, according to the National Guard, it was Trump that was holding them back. They had to get Pence to make the phone call because the National Guard wasn't allowed to go. But I thought you were talking about the day before. And the day before, I would have said, oh, come on. Yep. They're not going to do it. And then when they did, I mean, we're talking about like a few hours in there. And I'm sure a lot of people made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, of course. But
so what are you saying exactly? That this is on Trump or this is on...
No, I'm saying you can't say it's... I think a lot of people made a lot of mistakes. You can't hold Trump harmless.
Yeah, because they call it it's every time something huge happens, there's always an intelligence failure. They throw that word intelligence community. They're not that intelligent, but it was yeah, exactly.
Well, gang, this has been fantastic, and thank you for coming out. What we're going to do, folks, if you're watching this, we're going to put the link below to her Substack for you to go look. Rob, make sure that's in the comment section, chat, and description. And as well as the link to Amazon on any of the 13 best-selling books you want to buy. We'll put the link below as well. And thank you so much for coming out. I really enjoyed it. Watched you over the years. You're amazing at the work that you do. You know how to get under people's skins. You're a professional. And I know this, when we're sitting down talking, I challenge you on a couple different things.
This is fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun
Put
with it.
up
Hopefully
the
we'll
book
do
in
it again in
Trump
the
We
future.
Trust. That's the one
I'll
everybody
definitely
should
put that.
read. That's a good one.
Rob, put that as a top. Okay, gang, I think we're doing Tim Pool and Jimmy Dore on Saturday.
Correct, 9 a.m. Saturday.
There may be a surprise podcast tomorrow, and I'll tell you about it. Nobody else knows. You and I will talk about it afterwards.
Oh.
Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.